Imagine that you are an ordinary high school student named Seiji Managi, and you are just trying to survive another boring lecture. Our guy is a true legend. He thinks that today is the perfect day to doze off in the middle of class. But his sleep is interrupted by a mysterious wave, and a voice whispers about a blessing. He suddenly opened his eyes sharply, but instead of his desk, bubbles were floating around him. Managi was gripped by panic. He realized that he was deep underwater and desperately had to break to the surface before he drowned. He tries to move, but his arms and legs do not obey at all, and a huge fish is staring at him. This is not just a glitch, he realizes in shock. He literally became the water itself. His vision expands. A top-down view of the entire area opens before him, as if he is looking through a drone camera. A huge stream of information begins to pour into his head, as if he is downloading the entire Wikipedia of the world. He learns that he has been reborn as the great water spirit, and this huge lake is now his true body. Several days passed while he tried to digest the fact that his human life was officially over. Honestly, being a lake is just bliss. The sunlight is incredible and not a drop of stress. Strange animals began to visit its shores, for example, this horned rabbit that looks like a rare prize from a gacha. He realizes that his water is truly elite loot because it can heal any wound or illness. Suddenly, the calm is disturbed. The local wildlife senses that something is approaching. Two human children appear, and Nagi suddenly understands. These are the first humans he has seen in this new world. The children carry a basket of healing herbs, but look so frightened that they do not dare to use them. The boy Lumina prays to the lake and begs, "Great Spirit, please heal our mother." They gathered every blade of grass they could find, hoping for a miracle from the lake. Tension skyrockets as a huge winged wolf emerges from the thicket, like a high-level boss in a field. This monster is terrifying. Rows of sharp teeth and wings clearly indicate this is by no means an ordinary small mob, and the children break out in sweat as the wolf lunges forward to grab them. Nagi does not hesitate and summons a huge water vortex to protect the children. He watches through the water, and his power effortlessly stops the predator. Nagi is stunned. He can control water without any delay just by thinking about it. He realizes that looking like a giant blotch is too suspicious, so he begins to take on human features. He transforms into a cool figure in a hood, and around his body cascades shining water. He even crafted himself stylish clothes from the lake, so as not to look like a complete weirdo. "Now everything is fine," he says, reaching out his hand to the trembling children. The children are so overwhelmed with relief that they just burst into tears and threw themselves into the arms of their savior. Standing and looking at the mountain ridge, the boy asked, "Who are you?" Neji decides to keep his old name and calls himself the spirit of the lake. In the children's eyes, sparks literally shone. They had never seen such powerful magic before. Neji pretends as if he doesn't care and honestly admits that he just got this job. He touches a tiny water ball to the girl's face right where she had a painful cut. The wound instantly disappears, and it immediately becomes clear has S-rank healing abilities. The girl shines and shouts, "Neji, you are incredible." But a serious expression appears on the boy's face, is preparing to make a desperate request. "Please help my mother," he begs, bowing his head in tears. Nagi gently strokes the boy's head, calming him that everything will be fine. He insists that the children swear to keep his existence a complete secret from the whole world. He fills their flask with his concentrated healing water and swears that it will cure their mother. The forest teems with dangerous monsters, so he decides that they need a bodyguard. He creates a small jumping water spirit to follow them home. Suddenly, a system window called Nagipedia appears on the screen and begins to explain how everything works. This is not just magic. Great spirits can create familiars of the same element, which become their eyes and ears. The boy feels a strange and secret presence from the small spirit, whose power is equal to Naga's. Nagi names the little one Lu and asks the children to become his friends. They wave goodbye and return to their village together with the new companion. Nagi decides that the human form is enough for now and dissolves back into the depths. He calmly floats among the plants, enjoying the quiet life of a spirit. The night sky is reflected on the surface, and he finally begins to feel at home. But suddenly his calm was shattered. Through the water came another desperate cry for help. A family of dark elves appears on the shore. They look as if they have just been through a real war. The father, covered in wounds, pleads, "Please save this child, please." Neji, without hesitation, sent a stream of healing water into the mouth of the dying child. The boy's eyes suddenly open wide. His life force instantly returns. Their wounds disappear, and the family is moved to tears by the mercy of the spirit. Neji opens his Nagipedia and impatiently searches for any information about these newcomers. The system explains, dark elves have a very strong connection with spirits and can usually see them. But humans in this world are burly fools who consider dark elves enemies. Although they actually oppose the demon race, humans still treat them like monsters. Neji addresses them from the water and says they don't need to behave so formally. The elves froze in shock, hearing the voice of the Great Spirit with their own ears. Nagi tells them, "You can live by the lake, but promise that you will not pollute the water." The family is filled with gratitude. They sincerely thank him for his kindness. They introduce themselves as Etna, his wife Lena, and their son Gilio. And so Nagi gets his first group of permanent neighbors. A month passes, and Nagi spends it constantly thinking about how those human children are doing. He glances at them through his familiar blurred vision. He sees the children and their mother happy and healthy in their home, and it makes him feel like a hero. He still does not know why exactly he was summoned to this world. But he understands if this S-rank power can save people, then that is enough for him. He vows to save everyone who comes within his reach. Nagi emerges from the lake to chat with Etna, who looks at him in surprise. Etna tells him that since they arrived, no one has suffered serious injuries. He has been constantly sowing seeds in the fertile soil around the lake. "I am looking forward to this," says Nagi with a smile. Suddenly, a distorted voice begging for help sounded in his ears, and Nagi asks Etna if she heard anything, but the elf girl does not notice it at all. The voice grows louder, a desperate plea to the Great Spirit to help someone's only family. Suddenly, a huge magical circle exploded under Naga's feet. He was sucked into a whirlpool of water and light as he was forcibly called away. "Where are they dragging our guy, and who is pulling the strings?" Nagi wakes up in a strange place and wonders where, damn it, he ended up after being pulled through the mysterious magical circle. It turned out that he was called by a weak voice crying for help. He found himself squeezed into a cramped dark cage, surrounded by a bunch of frightened children. He instantly realizes this is not just an ordinary prison, but a cage for live merchandise. A little half-elf girl desperately prays to the Great Spirit to save her brother Rudo. Nagi understands, although they are half-elves who usually cannot summon spirits, her sincere heart actually reached him. He suddenly appears before her and says, "I have come in response to your call. I am Nagi, the Great Spirit of the lake." Seeing the boy unconscious on the floor, he knew that his new healing powers were the only thing that could save the boy. Jonah's girl begs him to save her only family and even offers to give everything she has in exchange. Nagi feels that Rudo is on the brink of death and understands that he was called because of the connection to the healing power. Her strong and kind heart impressed him, decided without hesitation to fulfill her wish. The shining seal of the contract with the spirit suddenly lit up on her hand, a sign of their new bond. "That's it, the contract is signed." He smiles and is already ready to get to work. Nagi places his hand on Rudo's head, directing a powerful surge of healing energy into the boy. In an instant, the iron shackles that bound the boy shattered like glass. Healing magic worked. The other children, from beast-like to Elvisair, simply stunned to see their chains disappear. Rudo finally opens his eyes and raises his gaze to his sister, not believing this a dream. Neji's heart melted seeing their reunion, but he knows he cannot just leave the rest of these children in this dilapidated shack. He tells them, "We will break out of here," although in reality he quietly sweats and does not know how to handle the whole group of orphans. One of the kids with animal ears asks if it's even possible to escape, and Nagi assures them, as long as he is here, everything will be fine. Suddenly, guards appear from the crowd of trash and shout at the kids for causing a commotion. But as soon as they see Nagi, they freeze, overwhelmed by an oppressive feeling of disgust and power. These burly fools treat the children like garbage, and Nagi's aura already begins to make the whole room tremble. One of them even pulls out a knife and throws it. Does Nagi really think he can defy them? Nagi's eyes turn cold as he listens to their threats, and he quietly calls them trash. But before the guard can react, Nagi compresses the moisture in the air and shoots a powerful high-pressure stream of water at the boy, knocking him back. The guards are already panicking, shouting, "Don't come closer," while Megi's water magic begins swirling around him. He taunts them, mocking, "Would you even believe me if I said I am a great spirit?" Nagi no longer plays around. He summons huge hands made of liquid that make the attackers tiny. He clenches his fist. The water instantly responds, smashing the opposition without any delay. He creates a fierce whirlwind that knocks the guards off their feet and leaves them completely curled up on the stone floor. Hooligans continued to twitch in the puddles, while Nagi towers over them like a true giant. When the greatest threat retreated, he took the guards' keys and opened the remaining cells, freeing the other children. Soon reinforcements appear. They call him a mage and claim to belong to legal slavery. Nagi immediately stopped this, sharply telling them that he is not a mage, but a spirit. He points a finger at the main scoundrel and resolutely declares that he has come to save the children from such filthy villains as they are. He lets the water speak, washing away the guards with a giant tidal wave. Nagi throws them one last chilling warning: if from now on you continue to enslave children, there will be no next time. The rest of the guards were so frightened that they almost stumbled over each other, rushing to flee. Our guy leads the children out of the dungeon, and finally they emerge to the surface, where they once again meet the sunlight. They found themselves in a gigantic city, and Nagi realizes with horror that he has no idea where he is or how to return to his lake. And to make matters worse, the boy's stomach growled, and he suddenly realized that he had completely forgotten. People do need to eat. He looked into his inventory and realized with horror he has 0 gold, nothing to buy supplies with. He enters the bakery, but the owner looks suspiciously at the boy, traveling with a bunch of characters of different races, as if they were just pulled out of a gacha. Nagi panics and weaves a wild story, as if all these children are his half-brothers, and he is simply happy that they are finally together again. He immediately regretted exaggerating, so much the lady from the bakery was truly moved to tears by his fabricated story. She gives the children as much bread as they can eat for free, reminding Nagi that although there are bad people in the world, there are also good people. Having obtained snacks, Nagi learns with surprise that they are in the city of Ilmus, far to the south of the kingdom of Rugunas. He desperately needs a quick way to get at least some money, so the baker suggests becoming a merchant or craftsman. But Nagi notices the Adventurers Guild and decides that the fastest way to get his bag is to complete a quest. He enters the guild, sees the order board, and thinks that this is the perfect way to earn money quickly. He approaches the counter with his party and asks the receptionist to register him as an adventurer. In the form, he keeps it simple: name Nagi, race human, occupation mage, skill water magic. He receives an official ID card, starting from the lowest ranked 10th class. To avoid attracting unnecessary attention, he chooses a simple outing to gather herbs, which seems safe enough for the children to join. But just as he was about to leave, high-level adventurers burst into the room carrying a wounded comrade. A commotion arose in the guild. The squad was attacked by a basilisk. Nagi knows wounds from a basilisk carry a vile curse that prevents normal healing from working. Yona looks at the dying elf Philly and desperately begs Nagi to help her. Nagi sighed and asked her to leave it to him, although today he did not want to stand out at all. He approaches the unconscious elf and secretly pours some enchanted water into his mouth. The crowd is still panicking because of the basilisk, but the curse is already being washed away by Nagi's highest-level divine magic. He tells the children to calm down and advises them to take advantage of the moment to go and quickly complete the herb-gathering task while everyone is captivated by the miracle. Philly wakes up as if reborn, fully alert, and immediately tells her teammates that as soon as she opened her eyes, she felt a divine presence. She understands that it was not just imagination and looks around the room searching for her savior. She sees Nagi leaving the building and rushes after him, shouting for him to wait a minute. She catches up with him in the alley and bows deeply, sincerely thanking him for saving her life. Nagi tries to pretend to be indifferent, but looks at him with incredible intensity. She drops a bomb right here and asks him, "Are you the great water spirit?" It seems the secret identity of our guy just leaked at record speed. Philly is completely shocked, looks into Naga's eyes, and finally realizes the truth. She asked him point blank if he really is the great water spirit. Before he could answer, the rest of the squad Gon and Shawnees flew in and dragged her back to bed because she is still recovering. They try to think logically, but Philly's elven senses twinge, and Nagi starts sweating heavily from the pressure of possible exposure. Finally, our guy simply accepts his fate and confirms it, causing Philly to explode into a genuine fan hysteria. She is so stunned that she was saved by a literal deity that she almost vibrates from it. Nagi catches her before she falls, but their moment is shattered by the unexpected appearance of a new opponent. This gray-haired man is Yushin, the guild master, and he overheard the entire revelation. He realized that such a heap of lore cannot be dumped in the middle of the corridor, so he called the whole group back to the guild for a private conversation. As soon as they settled in the VIP lounge, the air became heavy. The reality of the situation hit them. Yushin makes a deep bow, giving Nagi enormous respect for protecting one of his best adventurers. Our guy begins to tell them how this whole journey started when some child called him. He lays out the entire sequence of events from the rescue to the current situation. Yushin simply sighed with relief. It's good that the children were pulled out of that nightmare alive and unharmed. But Philly clings to one detail, that a half-elf managed to summon a great spirit. That's just madness. According to legend, such a mana reserve exists only in high elves. This realization hits Yana hard. She seems to carry the entire burden of the world on her shoulders. To express his gratitude, Yushin hands over a huge bag of gold for travel expenses. Nagi is stunned. He didn't even guess how much real weight the title of Great Spirit holds in this world. Yushin effectively offers him a blank check for everything he needs. When night quietly falls over the city, the guild building towers under the starry sky. The streets are quiet, as if the whole world is holding its breath. Neji watches over the children until they finally sleep well. He is sincerely grateful that you do not have to provide them with such luxurious housing. Suddenly, Yona approaches him, looking completely exhausted. He asks if she is having trouble falling asleep, and she simply bows her head to thank him once again. But in her eyes darkness as she tries to find the words. She sincerely apologizes for being the one who summoned him, because she feels that someone like her should not have such a powerful connection. She presses her hand to her chest. It is clear that her self-esteem is completely shattered after being treated like trash for a long time. Neji understands. Trauma from the past made her feel that she is not worthy of his protection. When he sees her so frightened by the shock of everyone around, his heart tightens. She literally trembles with guilt, convinced that she is a burden. But Nagi intervenes, gently strokes her head, and says that she has absolutely nothing to apologize for. He reminds her that she was the one who hired him, and she was the one who brought him here. He hits with sincere, warm truth, glad that she called because it gave him a chance to see the outside world. Exactly what she needed to hear, and she cried from pure relief. Their moment was interrupted when Philly knocked on the door. She quietly apologizes for disturbing so late at night, but she carries an urgent message straight from the guild. Nagi feels he definitely knows what it is about. The adventurers step forward and, without hesitation, swear to give their lives to protect the children while Nagi handles the matter. He turns to Yona and explains that he must leave for a short time. But she looks broken watching him leave, her eyes filled with fear that he might not return. To seal the agreement, Nagi swears with his pinky and, swearing on his honor, promises to return. And that promise finally makes her smile sincerely. Under the glow of the full moon, Nagi sneaks into the deep forest. The forest is eerie, and he feels a huge presence lurking in the shadows. Not much time passed, and he tracked his target. A huge basilisk awaits him. In the guild, Yushin explained, this monster is a real nightmare, its body almost indestructible. Nagi already understood this is the same beast that previously tore apart the Philadelphia team. Scouts reported something even worse. They found a second one, a female, who is about to give birth. These two basilisks are heading to the town in search of a hunting ground, and the guild offers a reward of 20 million gold for their heads. Yushin fell to his knees and literally begged Nagi Pelagro to save the city. But Nagi does it not for money. He knows that if he does not intervene, the innocents will be mercilessly killed. Yushin is burning with excitement and promises to tell the legend of Nagi to every future generation. Returning to the present, Nagi prepares for the hunt. Two giant basilisks burst out from among the trees, as if from prehistoric times, and look as if they are about to clear the entire hall. The basilisk fixed its eyes on its prey, its gaze radiated deadly tension. Our guy understands that his sinister eye, which turns enemies to stone, will not work in human form, so he decides to switch to another set, better for a risky fight with the boss. He suddenly began to pour out huge mana and transformed into a magnificent water dragon because he needed an even stronger form. He rushed into the air without any delay, leaving behind a trail of shimmering water. He hovered over the forest and, joking, says that if he has to fight, then let it be in a cool form. The two basilisks realized they had messed up. They attracted the attention of a creature, clearly beyond their match, when a giant dragon loomed over them. They try to look formidable, but in front of such power they are clearly sweating. Natty gives them no chance to recover, unleashing a destructive breath that completely cleanses the vestibule. A beam of energy hits directly into the mouth of one of the snakes, instantly breaking its defense. The power of mana was frightening. With one dazzling flash, it illuminated the entire forest. The explosion tears a deep crater in the ground and leaves the surrounding area crumpled like paper. Even Nagi is a bit stunned by the destruction. He admits that this power is stronger than I expected. One of the basilisks even tries to apologize while his partner is being torn apart, but Nagi will not let them go so easily. The last snake screams desperately, but I cannot let you escape, as he delivers his final blow. It raises a huge water vortex, trying to trap our guy in a water prison. The water boils and spins in a whirlpool as the basilisk pours everything it has into the spell. When the fog clears, Nagi becomes human again, completely unshaken. He walks toward the fallen beast. The massive basilisk is officially out of the game, lying motionless on the forest floor. He reaches out and touches the scales to make sure he killed it. He notices another woman with a swollen belly and quietly says, "Sorry," while the guild master looks on with a face full of shock. Nagi calmly says that the request has been fulfilled, not even suspecting that a guild member is lurking in the shadow of the trees. And our guy is on top calmly, instructs the hidden scout to retrieve the body. The guild member froze in amazement. Naga's stealth and speed are impressive as he prepares to return to the city. In the guild office, the boss loses his composure. He never imagined the quest would be completed so quickly. He drops to his knees in a deep bow, thanks Nagi for saving the city, and presents a huge pile of gold. Nagi looks at the loot and can't believe it's so much here. But the real win in the gacha is the next gift, a bag box for items that allows carrying as many things as desired. Nagi is truly impressed by this ability. He understands that now he can accumulate as many items as he wishes. The old man hasn't finished yet and takes out another reward. This plaque speaks for itself. Nagi is now a fourth-class adventurer. Nagi froze in surprise at the rank, and the boss explained, "You truly deserve first class, but fourth is the maximum I can give right now." Outside, guild members are already loading that huge snake onto a cart to carefully inspect and evaluate it later. Nagi politely thanks for everything, preparing to set off. He grabs his new magical bag and hesitates whether to return immediately to the lake. When the sun sets over the city, Nagi begins to piece together troubling legends. He knows that basilisks usually live far from people, so he wonders why they settled so close to the city. He freezes in place, asking himself if someone deliberately moved them to provoke a crisis. He freezes for a moment in the middle of the street and feels that something much bigger is brewing. His gloomy thoughts are suddenly interrupted when he sees Philly and the children waiting for him in front of the tavern. They couldn't wait for his return, so impatient that they insisted on meeting him personally. The children look at him with pure adoration and shout, "Lord Nagi, welcome home." Our guy finally smiled and said, "I'm home." The children literally covered him with hugs, a sincere, warm group embrace. He tells them to get ready, because tomorrow they set off on the road to his lake. He describes the lake as a peaceful paradise where dark elves live happily. He is confident the children will instantly find their place. All of them have already gone through similar hardships. Philly and her company watch from the side, and it is clear something is bothering them. Philly approaches him, her voice quiet. She says she is simply glad that he returned alive and whole. She says that they owe him gratitude that they will never truly be able to repay. She took a deep breath, gathered herself, and said to him, "Lord Nagi, I have a request." She asks if her entire team can go on a journey with him. She says she wants to repay his kindness by helping him. The other guys offer her a shoulder and swear to help protect the city and the children. The children are delighted, loudly rejoicing their older sister is going with them. Neji notices that the children have already become very attached to the group. Philly and the guys bow low, humbly asking his permission to join. Nagi extends his hand and accepts, sincerely thanking them for the offer. "From now on, I will rely on you," he says with a kind smile. Philly looks as if she just won the lottery. Her face shines with joy. The rest of the day, the group bustles with preparations. They stop by the local tailor for new gear. The children in their new travel outfits look simply charming. The townspeople gather to say goodbye, and one woman with tears in her eyes hugs Nagi tightly for saving their lives. Philly and the team stand ready by the wagon, looking like a true group of adventurers. Nagi receives the last heavy sack with payment for basilisk materials. Yashin, the guild master, comes out himself to see them off. He tells Nagi to come by any time and promises to throw an even louder celebration next time. Nagi jumps onto the cart and asks if everyone is ready to depart. With the final shout, "All right, let's go," the group sets off to the lake to begin their new life. The squad officially set off from Ilmus towards the lake, making their way through the dense forest, while a mysterious bird silently watches from the shadows. Honestly, it warms the heart to see the children admiring the landscapes with delight as they head to the city of Ronin. While they are on the road, Gandon and Shauna's work like real team tanks, sparing no effort and teaching the little ones the most essential self-defense techniques. Meanwhile, Nagi checks the magical talent and is surprised to find that Yona and Rat are actually already growing into top-level fighters. He begins to teach them to control the elements, helping to unlock their potential for spirit magic. Philly and Argai behave like proud parents, gently and confidently teaching the children the basics while everyone spends the night under the starry sky. Now he only dreams of a comfortable bed when they reach the city, but the gods are clearly not on his side today. As soon as they arrive at the local tavern, the owner immediately turns them away, shouting, "Sorry, we have no free spots today, try elsewhere." It turned out Ronan is packed, and they encountered refusals everywhere, nowhere succeeded. Even Gandon and Shanna look as if they just came out of an exhausting dungeon raid after failing to find any manor for rent. This is a complete dead end, and the team begins to realize there is simply no hospitality in this city. And Yona tries to act brave, telling Lord Nagi that it's perfectly fine for them to sleep in the dust like simple commoners. When they were almost about to give up, a local boy started circling around them as if deliberately trying to draw all the attention to himself. The team instantly switches to combat mode, looking like they could take down anyone who dares to approach. But it turns out he is just a scared kid who swears he is not suspicious at all. Nagi realizes the team is too tense, so he calms the situation and explains that they are just travelers unfamiliar with these lands. The boy's face lit up and he offered to lead them to a secret place. "Follow me," he shouted. Philly has every reason to break out in a sweat at the very thought of following some random NPC into a dark alley. But Nagi gives her that main character smile and promises, "I will protect you if anything goes wrong." The rest of the squad is so touched that they almost give him their entire lives, and that's a bit too much even for our guy. The boy leads them all the way to the outskirts and finally stops near a building that looks quite secluded. They are greeted by a kind, sincere woman named Marina. She warmly welcomes them all, even though the group was huge. She reassures them, "Don't worry about anything, there are plenty of beds." Turns out this is an orphanage cared for by the religion of Sarah, a place created to save the weak and help those in need. Nagi feels a little guilty for breaking into the charity house, but knows he must do so to ensure the children there do not feel threatened by a bunch of armored adventurers. He tries to keep his composure and passes himself and his team off as harmless travelers. Nagi explains that the children with them are refugees seeking a safe place to live. Yona steps forward and delivers a heart-wrenching speech. She tells the other orphans that Lord Nagi and the others are good people who truly care about them. She begs and promises they will be well behaved, just let them stay overnight. When Yona acts so bravely for the group, Naga's heart tightens. The local children immediately take to the idea, smiling broadly and warmly welcoming the new friends. Nagi pats Yona on the head for a job well done. Philly beams with pride and thanks Yona for the courage to speak her mind. The whole team bows deeply to Marina, solemnly asking for shelter for the night. Nagi is not going to be a freeloader, so he extends a heavy bag of gold that would make any gacha whale envious. Marina is stunned by the amount, but Nagi insists it is a fair payment for her kindness. Having received the money, Marina goes all out and prepares a truly luxurious banquet, as if it just came out of a fancy tavern. Nagi jumps up and starts helping with the cooking so that no one remains hungry. During dinner, Marina explains that most of the orphanage workers left for better-paying jobs, and now she has to handle everything herself. Nagi asks about Sarah's religion, and Marina explains that their goal is to help those in need. She says that their faith is based on the water goddess and the freedom of the water spirit king. This is an incredible lore drop about Nagi. He is truly the king of the water spear, whom these people worship. He sits sweating profusely and restless, while everyone praises his divine aura. When Marina notices that he has stopped eating, she asks if he is already full. She admits she saved the leftovers, so the children could eat properly when everyone returns tomorrow. The orphans were so inspired by her dedication that they vowed to work twice as hard to help. Their support moved Marina to tears. She realized she was not alone in this struggle. Nagi looks at this sincere moment and understands he must do something as their true god. Late that night, when Marina was praying to the King of Spirits for protection, Meggy decides it's time to intervene. He began to show his power droplets of water spun in the air. Marina was simply stunned. She could barely comprehend that a mighty spirit had appeared in her room. Nagi, speaking through the water spirit, tells her that her selfless deeds deeply moved him. He extends to her a spiritual stone, a high-level artifact worth a fortune. He tells her that his wish is for the children to be happy and insists that she sell the stone. Marina could not believe her luck. Bowing low, she asked how she could ever repay such divine grace. Nagi's message was simple: protect the children and love them, that will be your reward. The next morning, Nagi and his team are already preparing to depart. He throws Marina one last encouraging word: don't give up, keep doing everything possible. As they leave, Marina looks as if she has been completely rebooted, brighter and more determined than ever. Nagi approaches the team and asks what we do next. Jend and Shawnees have been extracting information in the guild, monitoring the weather, and checking if fierce monsters are lurking on the roads. They even managed to get a mansion for 3 days now. The team can finally relax in luxury. But just as life began to improve, that eerie raven from before starts watching Nagi intently from the trees. The bird actually spoke and said to him, "We will meet very soon." Nagi froze completely in surprise and could not understand what kind of strange creature it was. The raven flies to a mysterious room where a hidden figure watches everything that is happening. The mysterious boss watches Nagi through a crystal ball and reveals his greatest secret: he is a reincarnator from Japan. Nad and Gon were checking the road to the lake, and suddenly everything went awry. The guild is buzzing with rumors. Along the highway, monsters have become extremely aggressive. The atmosphere becomes even heavier when they say a black dragon was spotted over the neighboring town. This is not just some minor mob dragons, are noble creatures that almost never show themselves to humans. Gon suddenly realizes that leaving now would put the children under their care at great risk. Suddenly, a guild worker loudly called everyone to the bulletin board. The receptionist looks like she is sweating bullets as she announces a surge in monster activity. After thorough investigation, they understood the situation is much worse than they thought. This is not a minor skirmish. They are facing a monster onslaught or a dangerous panic stampede. To prevent the city from disappearing, the guild calls all adventurers of rank 5 and above to join the fight. They offer a fat sum 100,000 loss to anyone who joins the conquest squad. Nagi doesn't even hesitate, asks Gon if he is ready to rush to the front line. He asks the others to stay behind and protect the children while they take on the heaviest burden themselves. Yand, of course, is worried Nagi might rush into the flames. But Nagi simply gives him that calm main character smile and says this is the only way to clear the path for their journey. He is just completing the quest quickly so that everyone else can feel safe. They head to the registration zone, where a huge crowd of players has already gathered. Nagi notices Frio, an elf, extremely sensitive to that crazy spiritual aura that Nagi emits. A 4th-ranked pugilist named Fail approaches them. He seems ready to attract all the aggression onto himself. Nagi calls himself a 4th-rank water mage, but we all know his stats are simply off the charts. Guildmaster Jild steps onto the stage and demands absolute silence. He warned those who cannot keep secrets leave the lobby immediately. The air in the room becomes icy. Everyone holds their breath in anticipation of the revelation. He drops a bombshell, and immediately the Adantator rushes straight towards the city. Just its name and a wave of panic sweeps through the experienced adventurers. This beast is a subspecies of dragon, 10 meters of pure aggression. It is called the ravenous demon crawling on the ground. This is a high-level threat. It scares all other monsters and drives them out of this area. The plan is simple: set up a defensive line and do not let this tank reach the residential quarters. Jill admits that although it is slow, if it crosses that line, the damage will be permanent. Powerful guys start introducing themselves, for example Narj, a 2nd-rank spearman who looks like a real mountain. And also the twins Luo and Neo. They heal and fight like magical swordsmen. Frio tries to introduce himself, and this dude literally trembles in his boots. He is a spirit mage, but just being near Nagi fills him with real terror. The guildmaster distributes intelligence reports, and the squad immediately starts weaving theories. Character first: correctional school iron gates. Everyone grabs a sheet to study the boss's attack patterns. Nagi and his new team review the data and feel there will be no easy passage here. Narj steps forward and decisively proposes to choose a leader for the raid right now. The group is unanimous. They need a person with a high rank and charisma who will not allow the group to suffer a total failure. Most experienced adventurers are too nervous to lead. Failed immediately nominates Narj, noting how well he has managed the group so far. The rest of the team backs up this move. Narj glances around. Will anyone object, especially since there is a 1st-ranked player in the room? Amid applause, Narj officially became the raid leader. Nagi really can't wait to see how these high-level adventurers will act in concert. He decides to keep his true power a secret. He will show it only when everything turns into a real disaster. As soon as the gathering disperses, Narge reminds everyone that the real battle begins tomorrow. Frio, still dazed by Nagi, offers to host the group at his home. Nagi tries to politely decline. His friends are already waiting. But Frio insists that the whole team be brought to his huge mansion. When they return, Philly goes completely crazy because Nagi signed up for a deadly mission. Gan just shrugged. He knew, even if he tried, he wouldn't be able to resist Naga's sincere look. Just at that moment, Frio and Fail appear at the door to escort our guy to the mansion. Nagi explains to Philly what is going on and introduces him to his new companions. Vale is simply happy to be nearby on this trip. Freed Frio is truly proud that under his roof is a person of such caliber as Nagi. Later that night, the girls curiously wonder why Frio treats Nagi as if he were a true god. Nagi finally stops hiding the truth and removes the mask. He is a great water spirit. He sincerely tells about his mission to reach the lake and why he protects the children. Frio even cried from Naga's kindness. Vale suddenly realized the mysterious presence of Nagi finally makes sense. She admits that she was following him because she knew he was not just a random traveler. They firmly shake each other's hands, promising to make the conquest a success so that Nagi can reach his goal. The next morning, the children and Philly waved them goodbye, praying for their safety. Side by side with his faithful companions, Nagi sets out to meet the dragon. Everyone is sweating because the extermination of the Adantator is finally beginning. The magical unit takes positions to attract the enemy and reinforce the front line, while the rest of the team deploys the defensive perimeter. Our guy Nagi is not just standing, he is already starting to prepare the battlefield, performing top-level terraforming. He acts without any delay, controlling water and earth, creating a huge zone of destruction. He throws a huge swamp trap that looks like a real danger zone for any boss. The ground here is essentially clayey, so once the soil hardens, it is a perfect trap that will crush anyone who steps into it. The magical circles are charged, the defensive line is set, the air is heavy with anticipation. The squad receives an order to rest. Scouts reported that the real raid will begin at dawn. While Nagi relaxes, the twins Neo and Luo approach him, completely enchanted by his magic. They have a serious request and ask to borrow some of his time once this mission is completed. They dropped a mysterious remark: "There is someone we want to introduce you to." Nagi is definitely curious who could be behind this mysterious invitation. These two are so desperate that they literally fall to their knees and beg him to agree to the meeting. Nagi scans the room for suspicious signs, but realizes that everything here is 100 real. He agrees to meet their contact, but now must focus and prepare for the main event tomorrow. Morning struck and the earth trembled with such force that the entire map tilted. A huge mountain-like foot thuds heavily on the ground as if announcing, "The Adantator has arrived." This burly fool rushes straight at the city like a real destructive bullet. It breaks through stone walls as if they were wet paper, showing terrible, raw power. The boss rushes swiftly straight into Naga's swamp trap. As soon as it steps inside, the team instantly launches an ambush. The giant turtle is stuck in the mud, looking as if it has finally been caught in the CC chain. Some minor enemies in the group think they have already won, but experienced hunters know the fight is just beginning. The monster tears its way through the muck, forcing the mages to activate explosive mines. A powerful explosion shook the entire district, debris flew in all directions. Even Nagi must shield himself from the shockwaves, while the battlefield turns into a continuous war zone. When the smoke cleared, the monster was still standing in place, as if the powerful explosion hadn't even touched it. The squad begins to panic. They shout, "What? Even this doesn't work." Adantator lets out a roar that truly causes physical damage and breaks protective barriers. Nagi realizes that the front line is about to be destroyed, so he instantly creates a huge water vortex. "I put a barrier instead of a wall," he shouts, stepping forward to hold the defense alone. Inspired by the absolute calm of the main hero, the physical attackers rushed into the attack, trying to land several hits. They swing heavy blades and axes, trying to find a weak spot in that thick armor. They give their all in the attack, delivering powerful blows, but the boss's health bar barely decreases. Nagi watches as the situation rapidly spirals out of control. The monster's roar is so hoarse that it literally knocks down low-level adventurers. Frio Elf Mage realizes he is losing the trade and tries to buy time by summoning a huge golem. This time, this stone tank bursts into the boss, trying to hold the line. Hits with a heavy blow, but the Adantator is just too sturdy. The golem was completely smashed with a single counterattack, leaving Frio and the others completely unprotected. The monster charges up a finishing blow that would sweep the entire hall. But Nagi intervenes with a calm look and says to Frio, "I'll take care of the rest." He begins to channel a huge amount of mana, and a giant water dragon slowly takes shape. The water spirit looms over the battlefield, radiating an aura worthy of a god. Nagi releases the spell, and the dragon instantly lunges forward. Direct hit, a giant wave of water completely covers the Adantator's defense. The beast is engulfed by a vortex of pure elemental power. As the rain begins to fall, the dust settles, and it is clear that the monster is completely neutralized. Wounded hunters woke up and could not believe their eyes. Their wounds were truly healed by the mystical rain. No one can comprehend how the highest level boss simply disappeared, as if he was erased. They all spin around searching for answers, completely unaware of the authoritative reproach you just showed. Our guy decides to hide his true nature. He lifts the spirit stone and says he was just lucky. He tells them, perhaps the great water spirit took pity on me and helped, and the group fully believes it. They return to the guild to celebrate the victory with a loud and generous banquet. The only one missing is Gant. He is currently dying of a hangover in Frio's apartment. The quest is completed, and Nagi suddenly remembers his promise to the twins. They lead him to the outskirts of the city, whispering that their master was watching his every step. They approach a solitary cabin deep in the forest, surprisingly modest for such an important person. But when they approach the door, Neo and Lua unexpectedly open it. It is actually a magical gate. They activate a high-level teleportation circle, and suddenly the whole room begins to glow. Nagi steps over and finds himself in a magnificent hall, where a mysterious figure awaits him. An old man with a legendary beard greeted him and proclaimed, "You are the great spirit of water." And then he drops a real lore bomb. He utters Naga's true name from his past life. Saejima Nagi, isn't it? The tension in the room reaches its peak when the old man drops a real bomb. He knows that our boy's true name was Saejima Nagi. Nagi hasn't even had time to realize how the sage discovered his secret, and the old man is already weaving glowing kanji in the air to show who he really is. It turned out that he is not some random NPC, but a compatriot from Japan, Agatsuma Yuki. The revelation is so vivid, as if he is boasting about his premium gacha effects just to appear spectacularly. He stands there like a legendary unit, and finally the name has found a face. Vale completely loses his head, shouting in Japanese as if he just saw a glitch in the Matrix. The twins Luo and Neo are basically just sent to play while the adults talk about their business. But the sage is not trying to spoil your mood at all. Click and he summoned from nowhere a full set of the highest level, catching Nagi off guard while physics simply gave up. Turns out this legendary sage is actually quite playful. You just have to step beyond his frightening aura. While they were sipping tea, the elder suddenly revealed a harsh truth about the timeline. He said he has been living in this world as a seer for about 300 years. In Japan, he was just an ordinary businessman who was thrown into another world without any warning. Here is where the math starts to hurt my head. Nagi left Earth in 2033 and the sage in 2024. Although on Earth there are only 9 years between them, in this world the sage honed his skills for centuries. This is a colossal distortion of time. 9 years in our world equals 300 years in this one. This is a complete lag, jump in the very fabric of spacetime. The sage says that Nagi is actually the 4th reincarnate who ended up on this server, and apparently he is the most powerful of all. But he explains that once every few decades, people appear from Japan who come to bring change. They are like the world's way of forcibly pushing a new update to keep everything interesting. He has been watching Naga's arrival for years, using his gift of foresight. Remember that creepy crow that was stalking our guy? Actually, it was the sage himself trying to make contact with him. He apologizes because our spiritual connection was like trying to stream on a single Wi-Fi line. Nagi understands that the bird was not a threat, but just a too slow messenger. Hearing the word smartphone again, after all this time, hits Nagi right in the feelings. We get a quick overview of other players. The first is the legendary hero Takashi Matoba, who founded an entire kingdom before he died. He was actually the MVP of his era, the man who founded the kingdom of Takasul. And there is another guy who is now enjoying himself on a tropical island, living to the fullest while everyone else is doing hard work. What a contrast between the one who builds a nation and the guy who just wants an eternal vacation. But everything gets really serious when the sage asks Nagi for a huge favor regarding the twins. It turned out that Neo and Lua are not just random mages, but surviving princes of the fallen magical kingdom of Lunatia. That place flourished until it was wiped off the map 18 years ago. The sage has secretly raised them, since an old friend brought them to him as infants. These children are actually rare individuals with a high mastery threshold. They are hard to master, but incredibly powerful. They cannot create magic alone, but when they combine their powers, they cast large-scale spells that usually require a whole raid team. The sage begs Nagi to take them on his journey because years of isolation have completely ruined their social skills. He saw the future and knows Nagi is the key that will connect them with other people. He even bows to our guy, showing how sincerely he cares about the development of his student. When you see this legendary sage moved, you understand he is not just some cold-blooded genius. And Nagi sees the love the sage feels for these two and cannot say no. He swears right here and now, since he has this crazy power, he will use it to save everyone his hands can reach. This is a true moment of the main hero, and the sage looks genuinely grateful. Before they set off, the sage smiles and gives some useful advice, saying that Nagi should also teach other children magic. And then comes the hardest part, saying goodbye. The twins officially join the team and recognize Nagi as their new master. The sage reminds them that they can always teleport back to visit, so this is not a farewell forever. Finally, smiles appeared on the children's faces. They understood that their new adventure was truly beginning. Then the sage glanced at Fail, as if not believing, would she really follow Nagi? He feels she is not here without reason. She has her own secret reasons to stay close. Nagi does not feel any malice from her, so he allows her to go with him without hesitation. Fail begins to blush and assures that she is going only so that Nagi no longer does things his own way. This is typical behavior of Sunder, but the whole group just waved it off and laughed. The elder watches them go and prays that happiness walks alongside our boy on his journey. The new team is now officially formed. Luo, Neo, and Fail have joined the squad. Fail has already gotten along with the younger children and behaves like a true older sister. Even the twins are beginning to open up, but are still getting used to people constantly pointing out they have exactly the same faces and hair. Nagi sincerely thanks Frio for all the help, and in response, he gives her a water spirit, her new familiar. When all matters were settled, they packed their things into a cart and set off for the next town. But the mood instantly changes. The scene takes us to a dark landscape where people really manage to catch a black dragon and chain it in shining chains. This creature is a true nightmare, and it is clearly not happy to be trapped in a cage. It tore out a rough, guttural curse from its throat and promised to destroy every person it sees. If this is exactly what Neji expects in the next zone, our guy must be ready for a real boss fight. The team finally arrived at Muriel, a noisy city right on the border. It was a long month on the road, so our guy Neji decides to stay here for 10 days so that everyone's endurance bars can fill up again. While the rest of the squad dozes, a radar starts to buzz inside Neji, a gloomy premonition of disaster. He looks out the window and sees a giant vortex of dark energy swirling in the night sky. The Vidya are completely destroyed, and Neji feels a soul-wrenching wave of pain and hatred bursting from the very source. His curiosity bites him, but he will not leave his comrades unprotected to go on a lonely mission. He makes a move like a true pro gamer and summons a mighty water spirit to hold the fortress. This cute little storm of energy is Suiko. She immediately greets Neji as her dad and only then takes her place. Having made sure the base is safe, Neji slips out into the night, tracking that dark presence all the way to the basement of the neighboring manor. Suddenly he realizes the target is hidden deep underground, behind many layers of magical protection. Nagi has no time for a stealth approach, so he simply breaks the barrier as if it were glass. He falls into the deepest part of the pit and finds himself face to face with a real nightmare. A gigantic, terrifying creature is bound by shining chains, radiating an aura of pure power. It is a dark dragon, and even weakened its assault is furious. The monster introduces itself as Diazotis, and Nagi, like a quiet wave, calmly says that he is a great water spirit. This burly beast is at the edge of its strength. It admits that it no longer has the power to even flap its wings. It tells that it once lived in the very abyss of demons until humans played a vile trick. While it was hunting, they stole its egg and used it as bait to lure it into a trap. Now it is deprived of power by dragon chains and cursed spells that literally eat away its soul. The dragon is completely broken, with its last breath begging Nagi to save my child from the hands of those arrogant humans. Nagi will not allow the legendary creature to simply perish like some minor mob, so he offers to heal its incurable wounds. Otis believes that it is impossible, but Nagi's magic works completely differently. He instantly fully restores the dragon's health. The dragon looks at him as if a gacha god has just descended before him. Nagi does not stop. He grabs the legendary shackles and tears them from the ground without even touching them with his feet. Otis is drenched in sweat from the stunning power of this spirit, who just easily dealt with the cursed seal. To make them escape, Nagi doesn't even bother with the stairs. He simply breaks a huge hole right through the mansion's roof. Flying into the sky, Nagi must remind his fiery dragon not to level the city to the ground. His friends are still sleeping there. They fly to the palace in the neighboring city, where the egg is kept in captivity. Nagi knows if the dragon rushes into attack, it will just attract all the aggression and end up in captivity again, so he decides to go alone in spirit form. He becomes a tiny drop of water to slip unnoticed past the elite guards patrolling the corridors. He manages to sneak into the treasury, but he encounters a shocking twist. Inside, not one but two eggs are hidden. Neji realizes that he cannot pass the eggs through the walls like his body, so he decides to protect them both. He arranges a grand distraction, flooding the entire treasury and leaving the building, literally surfing on a giant wave. He goes out to meet the dragon, offers the loot, and it is then that Daya's Oda notices something strange. One of the eggs belongs to the black sacred beast named Narsh, a creature said to bring insane wealth and fame. Suddenly, the egg lit up and began to absorb Naga's mana. Returning to the city, the dragon asks how he can possibly repay such a huge debt. Nagi only smiles slyly, already making plans for his new dragon ally. Nagi and the cat girl notice. The city buzzes so loudly that it becomes unbearable. Our guy feels that something is wrong here and decides to head to the lake much earlier than planned. Philly sweats over logistics, reminding him that crossing the border without permission is practically a death sentence for their plans. Nagi does not panic at all. He calmly starts handing out quests, ordering the squad to split up and secure at least a month's supply of food. He throws Luo and Neo into continuous grinding. They have to find enough high-grade materials to build 3 huge houses for the whole team. While Philly drags others for new clothes, Naji decides to involve Agro in the hardest task, finding real professional builders. He heads straight to the guild, hoping to find a master carpenter who is not afraid to move a little. Walking through the streets, he feels his intuition begin to tremble. He senses a huge wave of distorted energy and malice seeping from the neighboring houses. The dark aura is so thick that he almost sees it, and it smells of pure corruption. He begins to catch psychic echoes of half-people who were illegally turned into slaves. The word slaves hit him like a debuff, and his face instantly petrified. He suddenly realizes that right beneath his feet, in some secret dungeon, people are imprisoned and suffering. A vision of frightened children crying for help flashes in his mind for our guy. This is a boundary he will never cross. Without hesitating for a second, Nagi uses his spirit powers and simply passes straight through the sidewalk. He finds himself in a dark, damp sewer that resembles a map of a maximum security prison. The stale air leaves no doubt this place is a real nightmare for anyone trapped here. Most people in the cages look like complete Rexes if their place is exactly there. But suddenly he notices an elf, and a gnome. Their energy is completely pure, meaning they were set up. The imprisoned elf saw the persistent spirit taking shape and gasped, "Great Spirit." He begs for salvation, his voice breaking from utter despair. The entire dungeon erupted in chaos when the news spread. The Great Spirit had appeared. The muscular fool in the neighboring cell tells him to shut up, treating the innocent prisoners like trash. Nagi doesn't play like that. He immediately drenches the boy with a concentrated stream of water to make him shut up. Suddenly he takes bodily form and begins breaking locks, whispering to everyone, "Quiet, someone is coming." The dwarf froze in amazement but admitted, even if he were freed, he would have nowhere to go. Nagi smiles slyly and throws the most important question. Does this mean you would like to leave if you had somewhere to go? The gnome understands that Nagi is serious and admits he is ready to do anything to get out of this pit. He explained that they lost everything and have no chance of survival outside. They took away our native land, he laments, showing hands clearly made for a blacksmith's forge. Natty enthusiastically tells them her plan about the lake and offers a place in her new village. He utters a phrase any main hero would be proud of. "If you don't have a homeland, we can create one." Of course, he adds a bit of brazen gamer greed, admitting that he actually just wants them to build him a few big houses. The prisoners are overflowing with gratitude, and even the fluffy half-humans beg to join the party. Suddenly, the criminal himself starts shouting, begging to be given carry, and assuring that he can build things too. They look simply pathetic, begging Nagi to take them away from their deserved punishment. The dwarf warns Nagi, "These guys are dangerous criminal slaves. They must be avoided at all costs." Nagi scans the room with his gaze and notices a boy sitting at the back. He truly has a pure heart. He passes through the bars to ask that boy why a person like him got stuck in such a place. The poor guy confesses he was framed by his best friend who took both the money and the girl. Meggy decides that this boy has suffered enough and firmly tells him, "You don't belong here." He grabs the innocent one and prepares to act, while the other criminals are still howling. Nagi unleashes a colossal tidal wave, and with one decisive move, it sweeps his new team out of the dungeon. Small enemies only bang against the bars and wonder why they never get lucky. Nagi looks back without any pity and says to them, "You brought this on yourselves." He leaves him behind, leaving a cold reminder. They will have to properly answer for their real crimes. The group finally goes out onto the street and breathes the fresh city air again. The dwarf is already delighted. he promises Nagi to build as many houses as he wishes in their new homeland. The rabbit and cat demi-humans are also ready to get to work and promised to try hard to repay his kindness. Nagi suddenly realized he had actually just taken under his care an entire village of people who had nowhere to go. He calms them down, says everything is fine, and promises to introduce them to his other comrades. When the main group sees the refugees, Philly and the girls cannot hold back tears. Their tragic stories break their hearts. Nagi shifts his attention to the poisonous fog spreading through the city and feels time pressing. Philly notices that local merchants are already packing up their shops, even before the supplies completely break down. Nagi decides to use the last day in the city to fill bags with all the daily necessities. The sun rises on their last morning, and the city is like a foyer of ghosts. The streets are empty, and Nagi notices that even his gold is no longer enough as it once was. Suddenly, a loud voice breaks the silence of the street and announces that the shop is almost closing. Nagi browses the goods in the local shop when the saleswoman Almina greets him with open arms. The place is literally bursting with everything from simple trophies to the most powerful magical artifacts. Suddenly, a crystal ball on the shelf begins to glow, as if trying to power up to the maximum. Almina explains, this rare item is made to respond to the presence of spirits. It seems that the brighter the glow, the closer or stronger that spirit really is. The ball explodes incredibly, emitting a dazzling flash that almost blinds the entire shop. Almina cannot believe her eyes. That creature seems to turn into a little sun. Realizing he can no longer hide, our guy drops the bomb. Actually, I am a great spirit, really very powerful. The revelation is too much for her brain. Almina simply plops her face onto the floor. In a moment, she finally opened her eyes, completely stunned by the truth. As soon as she regains consciousness, she desperately wants to know why the great spirit humiliates himself and wanders around the human shop. Nagi lays out a plan to move to the lake, and something clicks in Almina. They will have to establish a serious supply line for daily needs. Without blinking, she immediately asks, in that case, why not entrust the logistics to me? Finally, she admits, today she was going to close the shop anyway because she is moving. She almost begged to join him and whispered, please, allow me, Almina, to join you, Lord Nagi. To sweeten the deal, she offers to take all the items from her inventory as a bonus. As soon as the merchant class was unlocked, Almina officially joined the squad the very next day. Finally, the team leaves Mariel behind and dives into the forest thicket, heading to their new base. While others worry that they might stray too far from the border, Nagi suddenly says that he is actually meeting someone special. Suddenly, a huge shadow covered the sky, and a chill ran down everyone's spine. A towering black dragon descends, and the aura of pure power radiating from this creature makes the team lose their composure. The sheer wingspan of this creature alone instills terror, while others scream in genuine panic upon seeing the legendary black dragon. Everyone recognizes him, the very same monster that has been terrorizing our land recently. But Nagi calmly steps forward and explains that Diatotus is a victim who tried to retrieve a child taken by humans. The dragon bowed his head and addressed them directly. I have come today to thank Nagi for saving my life and my child. Nagi gazes into the giant eye of the dragon and suddenly realizes they now have the perfect means for lightning-fast travel. The others in the group, stunned by shock, fainted, and the dragon created a water sphere to safely carry them all. They soar into the sky, rushing through the clouds as if without any delay. Diatotes inquires about Naga's condition to make sure the flight isn't too turbulent. Little Yona is the only one who did not faint and noticed that the dragon actually has very gentle eyes. Nagi tells her about the family of dark elves waiting for them by the lake, hoping she will befriend a boy named Helio. Yona blushes, visibly happily excited. Finally, she has a place she can call home. As they clear the path, the dragon notices their destination. Yona's eyes sparkled when she saw the water. She exclaimed, incredible, it's beautiful. The dragon gently descends and lands right on the very shore of Lord Neji's lake. Diatotus officially paid off her debt and told Neji, I kept my promise. Neji thanks her for the help, and she flies off into the sunset. Waking the unconscious small enemies, the whole group gathers near the carts. Suddenly, the dark elves Etna and Helio jumped out of the bushes, stunned their lord had returned. They patiently waited for his return, but were a bit puzzled by the crowd he brought with him. Seeing the people, the elves immediately became alert and went on the defensive. Neji steps forward and vouches for them, promising that these are good people and they will never harm you. The team members begin to introduce themselves. Gand and Shaunus are the first to do so. Almina and Felix also step forward and sincerely tell how Neji saved them from a dark fate. Neji asked the elves if everyone could live together by the lake. Etna smiles, agreeing that working together is the best way forward. He invites everyone to his home for tea to properly welcome them. Nagi sincerely thanks Etna for such hospitality, feeling as if the gacha gods have finally blessed him with a good team. Yona instantly runs up to Helio to introduce herself. She even brings along her little brother Ruto so that he can join the fun. The children have already found common ground, and the atmosphere is simply incredibly warm. Even the strictest among them begin to find common ground with the locals. Nagi notices monsters circling overhead and realizes that such a large crowd might attract the attention of other nearby dangers. He raises his hand above the water and directs his power into it. He unfolds a colossal protective barrier that will not let any threat that tries to harm through. When the protective system activated, the elves joyfully announced a huge feast in honor of the master's return. As soon as the moon rises, the celebration explodes to the fullest. Here are the gnomes, elves, and humans all together drinking and laughing. Our guy looks on with quiet pride, satisfied with the community he himself built. Yona approaches, looks into his eyes, and gently asks if he is full. He tells her how happy he is that everyone has become such close friends. The children are already dreaming about fishing tomorrow, but Nagi sternly warns, stay inside the barrier. Yona looks at him with pure admiration and thanks him for working so hard for everyone. Nagi smiles, noticing that her gratitude is so strong he feels it even through the contract sign. She throws him one last sweet smile and runs off to play with Helio. When he is left alone, fatigue finally hits him like a truck and he mumbles, maybe I overdid it a bit. He decides to step into the water to recharge his mana. He thinks he will just quickly nap to restore his strength. He dives into the depths, thinking he will fall asleep for just a moment. Suddenly, through the water, Yona's voice reaches him. She is calling him. He slowly opens his eyes and thinks, is it already morning? He jumps out of the water, joyfully greets Yona, and tells her how fun the celebration was. But Yona is completely different. She reaches out her hand to him, and there are tears in her eyes. Nagi does not understand. She suddenly became much taller than he remembers her. And then she drops such a bombshell that you stand in shock. 3 years have already passed. Nagi is stunned by the news he has been gone for a whole 3 years. It turns out that while our boy was dozing in a magical sleep, the time jump hit him with full force. Yona, almost in tears, tells how every day she lived in fear, afraid that something terrible had happened. He thinks that Nagi simply exhausted himself working for their sake. Nagi finally begins to piece together the picture. He realizes that the fight with huge monsters and holding that powerful lake barrier probably drained his mana to 0. But the waiting is finally over, and Yona greets him most warmly and sincerely like never before. Our guy immediately notices Yona is no longer a child. He has grown up and significantly improved his stats. Yona whispers to him, close your eyes, he has a huge surprise waiting. When Nagi finally raised his eyes, a mansion grew before him so large that his old family house seemed like a shack among junk. These are real boasts from the peasants who wanted their savior to have a place he could call home. Nagi hesitates a little because of the luxury, but still takes a step into his new base. The gnomes really outdid themselves in interior design. But then Nagi suddenly notices something much more important. An egg sits on the pedestal. He feels terrible. He left this little one alone for 3 years. When he touches it, he realizes the gacha gods were smiling because inside you can really hear a heartbeat. Yona explains that the whole village took turns talking to the egg every day. When Nagi asks about monster attacks, Yona casually mentions that Philly and Suiko handled the patrols. Suddenly, a familiar face appears out of nowhere. Suiko greets him, good morning, father, and looks more magnificent than ever. It turns out Suiko stayed to protect the people of the lake because Yona personally asked her to. This is a huge lore drop. If Yona was able to summon and subjugate a high-ranking spirit like Suiko, then her spirit magic is now at the highest level. Nagi shines with pride, seeing how much his protege has grown in spirit. But their quiet moment is suddenly interrupted by a wild noise from outside. The whole hall has gathered to welcome him back, and it is complete chaos. Nagi tries to apologize for his sudden disappearance, but the angry elf waved it off. Don't worry about trifles. They have already set a huge table to celebrate his awakening. It turns out they all hid nearby to surprise him suddenly. Nagi is simply delighted by the idea of a party and tells Yona to invite all the other children. The celebration was in full swing. The whole town came out to the streets to see their lord. Etna says that the Dark Elves have now officially settled here and helped the fields yield a bountiful harvest. Nagi behaves like a true G, He says that if everyone living here has decided together, he has no objections. This kindness literally moves the dark elves to tears. They started serving fresh salads straight from the garden to the table, and they look simply incredible. They even advise Nagi to drop by the smithy to check out the new equipment being crafted there. The stocky dwarf Garud finally appears to greet Nagi. Nagi thanks him for the house, and Garud smiles and says it was a real pleasure for him. He admits that building houses for the community gave him a new, sincere sense of satisfaction. That place stopped being a camp, it became a real town worthy of respect. The next day Nagi sets out for a walk. He wants to see with his own eyes how things are going. The town looks lively and calm as Yona leads him through the streets. They run into Almina. She is glowing with impatience to show off her new shop. Now they have a strong economy. They exchange materials from high-rank monsters for goods from neighboring villages. The quality of life of each person was actually raised to the maximum. Finally, they ran to the blacksmith to see Garud's new masterpiece. The forge looks professional and fully equipped. Garud proudly shows the blade he worked on, and Nagi is instantly captivated. It is an exquisitely decorated dagger that exudes quality. Garud, with eyes glowing with admiration, says they found a vein of mithril underground and asks Nagi to bless it. Because it was mined in Naga's domain, he can truly make it a legendary item. Nagi channels his water magic's blade glowed with ethereal light. The gnomes are simply stunned by this spectacle. The blessing worked perfectly, turning the blade into a true spirit sword. This is not just a rare drop, no, it is one of the 10 most powerful weapons in the entire world. Nagi allows Yona to hold it, and the spiritual energy swirling around the child was simply insane. The aura is so heavy that the air literally ripples around. Yona is mesmerized by her beauty, but the wild power is so strong that he really feels a bit dizzy. Suddenly, someone bursts into the party with a scream of panic. It's Luna. She looks completely nervous. Suddenly, she blurts out, "The dragon's messenger is standing right behind the barrier." Neji can only guess what serious threat or important message is now lurking for him. Neji found himself face to face with a messenger from the village of dragon creatures who was looking for him. The man introduced himself as Danif, confidently acknowledged Neji as the Great Spirit, and then brought heavy news. He carries a terrible burden and says directly, "I have come to fulfill the last request of the Dark Dragon, Lord Diozotis." Our guy is completely stunned by the mention of the will. He feels that something tragic happened while he was away. They decide to move the conversation to a private place to discuss the grim details of the dragon's death. Turned out that after Negi saved Diozotis, the dragon lived carefree in the abyss of eternal darkness near the village of dragon-like beings. He lived peacefully among the peasants, not bothering anyone at all. But suddenly, a self-proclaimed envoy of the kingdom of Luginas arrived, called Diozotis an evil dragon, and demanded that the peasants hand him over. Dragon people are not snitches, so they resolutely refused to obey the order to betray their friend. This forced the kingdom to return with a whole army to plunder the village. The dragon knights held their positions until the kingdom's heroes burst into battle. Everything was overturned, and the village was smashed. Seeing his friends being felled, Diazota intervened, unleashing all his true power. He repelled the invaders. Even as the people retreated, the dragon knew they would simply return, bringing with them even more minor fighters to sow suffering. He decided that the only way to protect the village was to go on a deadly mission and destroy the human troops once and for all. He left Danif with one last request: if he did not return, take his child to Nagi, let them protect her there. With a heavy heart, he entrusted the future of his son Pelagius to the Great Spirit. Back in reality, the burden of the fierce battle still weighs as Dana finishes her story. Suddenly, something began to stir in the basket that Danif had brought. The dearest little dragon you have ever seen jumped out, Prince Pelagius. The baby immediately loved Nagi, and without any hesitation jumped onto his lap. This is a complete victory in the cuteness category. He gently rubbed Naga's hand with his nose. Nagi asks about the remains of his father and learns that the peasants buried him with honor. Looking at that innocent little dragon, Naga's heart melts, and he thanks him for staying loyal to his friend. He solemnly vows to take the child under his wing and protect him. Denif returns home, begging Nagi protect the prince at any cost. A week passed, and Nagi fully immersed himself in the life of a father, promising to raise Pelagius as a legendary dragon. The baby is simply bursting with energy, constantly chirping, and always ready for adventures. Nagi takes him deep into the forest every day for live combat training to help him level up. But they are not alone. Even some random slime has recently started following them. This little blob behaves like a cleaning crew. It eats all the crumbs that Valacious leaves after hunting. It is unexpectedly clever and even tries to communicate with Nagi using gestures. The training is interrupted when they notice a huge shadow hiding in the bushes. It is a hippogriff, and it looks like it has serious character problems. The monster burst out from among the trees, screeching a battle cry directly at our guy. Pelagius does not hesitate. He meets the monster in the air with a hard headbutt. But the hippogriff has a nasty debuff. It emits a piercing scream. The sound wave hits Pelagius right in the heart. He is stunned and barely stays in the air. Nagi understands that the scream paralyses, and for the young dragon, this is a complete hassle. He relies on Pelagius's raw stats, believing that they will handle this trial. The slime even tries to cheer them on from the side as the tension rises. The hippogriff took advantage of the stun and slammed Pelagius into the ground with a powerful, bone-breaking blow. The little dragon is pinned down. He is subdued and looks like he is about to be crushed. Just as Nagi was about to draw the attack onto himself and end the bird's career, something changed in the air. Pelagius's eyes begin to glow with a terrible, ancient light. Suddenly, a huge dark abyss expands, swallowing everything around into absolute darkness. Nagi feels an overwhelming pressure. This is the true terrible power of the dark dragon. The monster realizes it has messed with the wrong player and starts to panic as the darkness approaches. The darkness is so thick, it seems to repel the very light, a terrifying aura that would break any ordinary creature. When the shadows finally dissipated, only a few feathers remained of the hippogriff. Pelagius pants on the floor. He cleared the vestibule in one go. Nagi rushes to heal his tired little warrior after the exhausting awakening. He is incredibly proud and gently and deservedly pats the dragon on the head. When Pelagius returns to the food, Nagi feels two familiar presences approaching them. And then, as if out of nowhere, the twins appeared, Neo and Luo. They explained that they were busy helping their master with magical research near the lake. Nagi barely had time to comprehend their appearance when they had already captured him in a huge teleportation circle. He is simply kidnapped without any warning. He finds himself in a room with an old man who apologizes for his student's rudeness. The old man smiles and introduces the guest, Muta Haraki. The boy smiled slyly and dropped a bombshell. He is another reincarnator from Japan, just like Nagi. Hiroaki Mudu sits opposite our boy, and it turns out he is a reincarnator from Japan, just like Nagi. Nagi is sweating because he clearly remembers having heard that name before. They firmly clasp hands, and the boy says to Nagi, "Just call me Hiramu." But this guy is clever. He instantly understood that Nagi is not an ordinary person, but a powerful spirit. Hiramu decides to make a loud confession. He says that although he looks human, his true form is a legendary sacred dragon. Suddenly, little Bara just jumped out to greet them, and Hiramu instantly recognized him as the child of the dark dragon Diazotis. Hiramu warmly remembers how reliable Diazotis was, but Nagi is forced to spoil the mood with heavy news. Naga's fist clenches. He is preparing to deliver a report that will hit painfully. Diazotis has died. Hiramu is completely stunned. He does not want to believe that such a powerful top-level fighter could simply collapse. Nagi explains that a messenger from the village of Dragonkin came to personally bring that grim news. Hiramu sits down, looking completely broken from the loss of his old friend. An old man joins the conversation and anxiously explains that the kingdom of Lagnus is starting to move strangely. They are going to start a full-scale war against the dragon village very soon. To divert anger and justify the invasion, the kingdom presents old cases, such as the attack on the treasury, as a pretext. They pinned all the blame on the dark dragon just to have a reason to get rid of him. Nagi sharply points out that this logic is garbage, since it was the humans who stole the egg and were the first to use forbidden magic. The old man explains that the situation is much more complicated than just a misunderstanding. Forbidden magic is not for human hands, it is a reserve of otherworldly power. This means that the entire kingdom can become a puppet in the hands of demons. These demons are essentially the fiercest griefers who rebelled against the gods and use the evil forces of darkness. They hide in the shadows, insidiously hunting other races to accumulate power for themselves. Harama burned with rage. It was necessary to show people the true horror of what happens when you make an enemy of a dragon. Nagi is not going to sit and watch the village disappear from the map. Garam agrees, recalling the promise to lend his power if everything goes awry. Naj is ready to help, but he is frightened by the thought that collateral damage will affect innocents caught in the crossfire. The old man agreed. Corrupt officials are the target, but simple people must never be harmed. He officially entrusts them with the main quest of this arc. Hurry to the dragon village and protect it from the advancing army of the kingdom of Lagnus. Nagi instantly grabs the mission, and the old man promises to investigate the demonic influence in the capital. Hiramu looks at Nagi, in his eyes both respect and guilt. He apologizes for giving in to anger and dragging an innocent person into this trouble. He is sincerely grateful that Nagi will stand behind him in the upcoming battle. Yes, Nagi smiles and says that since he met Diazotas and sheltered Baragius, he has never stayed aside. He wants to protect the baby's homeland and fulfill the wish of the dragon who saved him. Hiramu smiled, realizing that Nagi is truly a very open guy, just as their mutual friend Yuki said. He said, "It's time to move," and the air begins to shimmer with colossal energy. Huge white wings spread out, catching the light and preparing for takeoff. Hiramu reveals his true form, a majestic white dragon, like a real boss. Nagi jumped on his back to rush without any delay, and Baragius flies alongside. They look like a legendary team, heading straight into the high-level zone. Before leaving forever, Nagi gathers the elves to explain why he has to go to the dragon village. He wants to make sure that this town does not get dragged into the conflict while he is away. Little Yona steps forward and begs Nagi to take her with him this time. She has long leveled up her stats and now confidently says that she can finally fight with the spirit sword. Nagi gently strokes her head, with a quiet smile acknowledging that she has become stronger both in body and spirit. But instead of sending her to the battlefield, he asks her to become the last unbreakable protector of the city while he is gone. Yona accepts the mission with a determined look and promises to protect everyone while Nagi is away. Again in the air, Nagi tells Borgias that he wanted to keep Yona away from the fight for her safety. Borgias behaves like a true sweetheart, gently cuddling Nagi as they fly through the clouds. Nagi admits that he even hesitated whether to take that little one with him at all. But since this is his father's resting place, he wanted to respect the children's feelings and at the same time persuade him to promise not to fight. Suddenly the dragon's eyes sharpened. He noticed something on the horizon. Finally, through the mist, the destination emerges. Dragon Village, a huge and beautiful settlement built among floating mountains and noisy waterfalls. Our guy finally arrived in the very heart of the storm to protect the innocent from the flames of war. Elder Rojas is approaching to meet and greet the squad in the village. He's curious whether our guy Nagi is truly the great water spirit, alongside the legendary sacred dragon Takamuto and the dark dragon Baragius. Nagi nods to him friendly, and little Baragius just makes a cute chirp. Rip, Rojas clearly sighed with relief. He was so worried about the approaching war that he was drenched in sweat. He says that reconnaissance confirmed. The enemy army is only a few days away. But before the raid begins, Nagi wants to take the little one to the resting place of Diazotas. Rojas agrees to lead them to the dragon mausoleum, which towers on a massive floating rock. When they approach the monument, Nagi freezes and silently gazes at the statue of the fallen dragon. Looking at the ancient inscription on the stone, I suddenly realize the full weight of this situation. I fall silent about the peace here in a world drowning in chaos. This is a true rarity. The mood instantly changes as soon as Borgias realizes where they are. The poor little dragon bursts into tears right on the stone, and that is enough to break anyone's heart. Nagi falls to his knees, touching the cold stone and whispers, "I really wanted to meet you again, alive." He makes a vow to protect the village and guard the dragon's legacy. Suddenly, a barely perceptible ghostly figure appears to thank him. Nagi simply froze in surprise. He looks back at the empty statue and suddenly understands too much is at stake in this upcoming defensive mission. Since they are already nearby, Hiramu suggests dropping by the Twilight Sanctuary, the place where the dragon once lived. They find a huge crater in the ground, as if a nuclear bomb really exploded here. The group cautiously moves along the edge of the pit, trying to find the entrance to the hidden cave. Running into the darkness, Nagi feels that something is clearly wrong here. He froze in place, a mysterious aura wafted at him from the shadows. From the tunnel ahead comes a deep, piercing cold. Despite the alarming signs, Nagi decides to draw the enemy's attention to himself and goes alone. From the abyss, two shining, empty eyes look at him, as if asking what he wants. A dark-haired boy appears, looking as if he hasn't slept for 10 whole years, and Nagi says that he is the spirit of water. Here is Formus, the great spirit of darkness, and he is clearly not pleased that guests have appeared in his domain. Nagi sadly explained that he came only to pay respects to an old acquaintance who recently died. Formus seems completely indifferent to all these sentimental things and simply looks at Nagi with an empty gaze. He mysteriously says, Nagi no longer really resembles a spirit, he communicates too much with people. Before Nagi can ask for more stories, Formus promises to remember him and dissolves into the air. The air, Hiram is completely shocked. Nagi just talked to the spirit of darkness. The next few days they enjoy a short rest among the dragons, who turn out to be the nicest NPCs. Nagi sees how peacefully they live and realizes he will not allow any petty enemies to ruin this village. He sits alone, hardening in himself the determination to protect these people, no matter what happens. But the calm does not last long. Hiramu shouts out bad news. The enemy army is finally approaching. Hiramu becomes serious and asks Nagi if he is really ready to fight other people. Our guy confesses, although he has fought before, he has actually never killed a person. He knows he must pull himself together. This is the decisive battle for the survival of everything dear to him. Finally, Hiramu admits that his human consciousness is fading quickly, and honestly, it scares him a little. He tells Nagi that speaking the Yuki language is the only thing that reminds him he was once human too. They agree to end this conflict as soon as possible, and at that very moment, a messenger runs in. The armies of the Kingdom of Luganis have finally arrived, and they are not here for jokes. The sky is clear, but the air is heavy with the smell of blood. Standing on the edge of the cliff, they hold their breath. 20,000 soldiers are camped on the plain. On the other side, the dragonfolk have only 200 elite knights and about 3,000 regular soldiers. Dragon knights are sturdy units, each worth 200 men, but the enemy has hero-level warriors who can deal with them alone. Nagi squints his eyes, sensing 5 distinct, extraordinarily strong presences among the enemy ranks. Suddenly the ground trembled as a huge magical circle lit up in the sky. The enemy, wasting no time, launches a higher-level summoning ritual as if pulled from a nightmare. From the swirling energy, a colossal creature begins to take shape. It is a giant armored golem that blocks the entire forest and emits a terrible aura, causing ordinary soldiers to freeze in fear. Nagi acknowledges that the enemy summoners are indeed skilled enough to pull off such a move. The Titan fires a colossal beam of energy directly at the spot where our guy stands. Nagi doesn't even flinch. He steps forward, and with one hand stops the entire explosion. He tells Hiram to get ready, and his friend without hesitation rushes forward, half transformed into a dragon. Hiram's strike is so powerful that with one blow, he completely shatters the entire enemy assault. Nagi smirks, thinking they have gained the advantage, but his spider-like senses suddenly tremble. In an instant, a deadly blade flashed through the air, and Nagi collapsed before the dragon could even shout his name. Between Dragon Village and the Kingdom of Luginas, a war has just broken out, and everything immediately went awry. An assassin tried to kill our guy Nagi. However, Nagi is by no means some minor enemy who can be caught off guard. He used himself as bait, exposed the assassin, and lured him into a water trap before the assassin could deliver a fatal blow. His allies are completely stunned. He is unharmed, and Nagi is already thinking 3 steps ahead. He suddenly realizes this is not just a random thug, but a person with the skills of a true hero. He hands the prisoner over to his guards, let them keep the scoundrel under close watch. Having made sure that the home base is safe, he decisively sets off straight to the enemy camp to find Hiramu. Meanwhile, Hiramu is simply smashing through, leaving no chance for those so-called heroes. He delivers a heavy blow that clearly lets the opponents understand who they are dealing with. One of the heroes, a burly bearded man, is boiling with rage and calls him a creature resembling a gecko. Hiramu only smiled slyly and asked the enemies, "Is that all you have to corner a hero?" The third heroine tries to sneak up and attack from the flank, thinking she has found a weak spot. She screams that he is full of holes, but is about to find out that Hiramu has no delay at all. He easily dances through their coordinated attacks, like a pro gamer on a Smurf account. He grabs a huge axe with bare hands, and by this shows that the gap in strength is simply too big. With one lightning-fast kick, he sends the knight into the air and simultaneously keeps the bearded man at a distance. Standing aside, Nagi realizes that Hiramu can easily take down all 3 heroes without even breaking a sweat. While Hiramu holds the front line, Nagi feels a sinister presence lurking nearby. He walks along the trail of destruction left by Hiramu's previous dragon breath. He traces the trail to a secluded tent and senses a human presence hidden inside. Inside, we see a hooded summoner who panics completely as she tries to loot the treasure chests. She panics because Nagi destroyed the demon she had summoned earlier with one strike, and that was definitely not part of her plan. Nagi casually enters and begins preparing his water magic. He trapped her in a shining water shield and offered to surrender without a fight. But the summoner is confident it's a bluff and he won't let himself be fooled. She suddenly pulls out her grimoire and summons a burly minotaur to crush Nagi. Our guy didn't even flinch controlling the water. He simply cut through the beast's assault. He completely immobilizes the minotaur in a block of enchanted water, and the summoner stands there, drenched in cold sweat. In despair, she summons the next one, a giant fish-like monster named Bakwana. This creature is like a nightmare from the ocean depths, looming over Nagi. It raises a huge whirlpool, trying to swallow Nagi whole. The summoner thinks she has finally dealt a deadly blow. Nagi stands right in front of that huge toothy maw and is not afraid at all. He calmly reminds her that the water is his and fully takes control of the monster's element itself. A giant explosion of water burst out, completely smashing both the summoned creature and the confidence of the one who called it. The explosion threw the girl into the air, and she realized she was no match at all. Nagi fixed her with a gaze and coldly said that choosing him as an opponent was a bad idea. She looks at him as if seeing a true god and cannot understand why her high-level magic refuses. In a last desperate attempt, she burns the remnants of her mana to summon heavy artillery hydra and Hekaton chair. Huge magical circles fill the air as she calls forth ancient horrors. These many-headed monsters appear, carrying such a terrifying aura that any ordinary soldier would faint. She even summons a giant, a massive creature, resembling an armored elephant. She shouts to her monsters, "Kill that guy." At that very moment, they rush into a joint attack. A huge trunk falls with a dull roar right on Nagi, threatening to crush the entire area. The battle raged to the limit when three heroes realized, against this true monster, they simply have no strength. The villain only smiles at their pathetic resistance, mocking the very idea of a hero, and prepares to end the raid. Fraser makes a desperate move, but in one brutal exchange, she is completely shattered. Seeing their comrade so thoroughly defeated, the rest of the knights instantly lost their fighting spirit. They swear that her death will not be in vain, squeezing out the last strength from the mana for one desperate combo. They throw their most powerful moves into battle chronostamicals and Hazan Tenjiki, hoping to pierce the insanely strong defense of the villains. The explosion is colossal, it lights up the entire battlefield, and has so much power that it can sweep away the whole front. For the briefest moment, the knights truly thought that victory was already in their hands. But this hope instantly fades when a destructive counterbeam cuts through the smoke. The villain emerges from the dust with only a few scratches, and looking at the heroes lying broken on the ground, says that it is all over. While Hiramu stands aside and hesitates whether he will have to pick up our guy Nagi. The main hero is up to his ears, in a fight with a literal nightmare monster that has a bunch of arms. Nagi tries to keep his distance, dodging through a barrage of heavy blows from a crowd of small enemies. He tries to drown the beast in a giant whirlpool of water magic. It looks like a successful move, but this monster is just too massive. Suddenly the beast gaped its jaws and Nagi realized he just walked into a trap. The monster does not just take the hit, it literally absorbs water to power its attack. Nagi feels cold sweat running down him as the creature prepares to respond with fire. The Hydra's heads join in, splashing its deadly poison everywhere. Nagi barely manages to cover himself, but the poison is already starting to eat through his defense. He is completely surrounded by high-level mobs, and his usual gear is of no use here. He knows that a normal attack won't break through against three bosses at once. His usual fighting style is completely unsuitable for this situation. Driven to the edge, he dives into the depths of his inner library, searching for the forbidden letter code. Right in the very center of the forbidden archive, he comes across a gigantic tome locked with heavy chains. He feels incredible power bursting from the book, but it was sealed for a very dark reason. Even knowing it is forbidden, Nagi understands he has no choice if he wants to survive. He reaches out his hand, his fingers trembling. He prepares to break the seal. To get out of this situation, he is ready to pay any price demanded by the gods of gacha. With a deafening crack, the chains break and a dazzling light engulfs his sight. He opens his eyes, and there is already the icy gaze of a true monster hunter. The demon girl in the shadow is simply stunned by the sudden change of mana. Nagi begins to pronounce the forbidden art of the spirits, and the very air around starts to vibrate with pure deadly intent. Three monsters rush into attack, and they do not even suspect that the game is already lost for them. Naga's eyes fixate on the targets, seeing through their defenses. He calmly stands in the eye of the storm, while his mana begins to rewrite the very laws of physics. He whispered the name of the technique, Mist Annihilation Realm. In a moment, the huge monsters simply erase from existence, crumbling into the finest particles. The demon girl remained trembling, not understanding what had just happened after witnessing such terrible power. The monsters do not even leave a drop of loot, they simply vanish, like a glitch in the Matrix. Naga's body finally gave out. He collapses, and his strength begins to drain. He realizes he used too much power, and the recoil knocks him down like a truck. He remembers the mist sphere of annihilation, a technique that turns the target into mist and erases it forever. Even when blood flowed from Naga's eye, he managed to hold back the residual fog with a water shield to avoid dying himself. He glances at the demoness. She has finally regained consciousness. Hiramu explains that another prisoner committed suicide before they could extract any information from him. Nagi wakes up and suddenly sees Hiramu standing over their new trophy. This is the same heroine who summoned the fire giant. She is definitely not human. Nagi points to her horns, and that powerful magical aura clear proof that she is a demon. Hiramu is convinced she is the very demon they were warned about. Hiramu is not joking, coldly asks, "Shall we kill her here?" The girl begins to choke on the magical seal, desperately trying to utter a single word. Finally, she lets out a scream. "I am a demon. I will tell everything I know. I beg you, please." Just as she is about to tell the whole truth, the silence spell activates and she starts coughing up blood. Naji realizes that her own people are going to get rid of her and rushes to intervene. The girl stands on the brink of a permanent game over as the poison takes over. Nagi stabilizes her at the last moment with his magic, although Hiram thinks he is too soft. Nagi just smiles and tells his brother that lies don't work on him. He already knew she was sincere. But he clearly says, if she turns out to be a threat, he will deal with her himself. They understand that demons cast silence spells to hide their secrets from humans. Returning to the village, Nagi can finally rest to his heart's content. He deserves it. He is greeted by Barajas' loyal favorite, wildly happy to see his master safe and sound. Nagi gently strokes the little one on the head and finally relaxes after an exhausting, tense routine. The war with the kingdom of Luginas ended in a complete victory, and it all happened in just 5 hours. Nagi cannot get rid of the thought of how merciless and terrible demons are they even turn on their own. He knows the war with the demons is far from over. For now, he will simply enjoy the peace he fought so hard for. Several weeks have passed since the war with Luginas finally ended. Our guy Nagi is currently in recovery mode, quietly resting in the village, while the elders await a response from the sage. Meanwhile, the demoness they captured has been acting like a real sweet bun since she woke up. It's somehow strange, seeing a former threat so cute when she plays with her caretaker. It turns out that literally everything that happened after 8 years has been erased from her memory. The sage believes that this regression in consciousness is a vile side effect of the silence spell that backfired on us. Even after her memory was erased, she is still the center of attention, so they plan a meeting to discuss what's next for the kingdom. Nagi says he is already fine, although his mana is still dripping from his hands like a leaking faucet. When he finally meets Agatsuma, that girl, Mashras, just sweats profusely, just from being in the same room with him. She clung to her guardian Sina. It seems only she can calm her down. The sage drops a real bombshell of truth. It turns out Mashras is not even a pureblood demon. She is a half-blood who was forced to master higher-level summoning magic, and this placed a tremendous burden on her soul. Healing Neji truly saved her life, but her mind regressed to a childlike state, the only way to survive the shock of having her true self erased. She is not pretending, she is genuinely scared, because she feels the overwhelming presence of Neji and confuses it with a demonic aura. It gets really grim when you realize that demons essentially used her as a disposable battery for their monsters. Agatsuma says that after the war in Luginas, everything looked too suspicious. When he approached to check, the guards immediately rushed to restrain him. He suddenly realized the entire army had been brainwashed by evil demons. Wasting no time, the sage slammed his staff on the ground and cast debrainwashing spells across the entire kingdom. The scale of his mana is terrifying. With one flash of light, she cleanses the whole city. Unfortunately, when he left the lobby, the demon's plan had already worked. Everything looks very bad. A whole bunch of mages, spirits, and slaves have already been taken. Agatsuma is sure demons, using all those kidnapped mages, are preparing something that could destroy the world. Even the Dragon King is about to intervene during the chaos. One of his relatives was killed. Nagi must appeal to the great spirits to prepare for the coming storm. The problem is that most powerful spirits are neutral, and they don't care at all about human dramas. Nagi knows they cannot relax if they want to survive. Before leaving, Nagi hands over a magical tome they tore from the demoness. Seeing the forbidden spells inside, the sages froze in shock. The level of monsters Mashers was forced to summon was impressive. He decides that the best thing is for her to stay in the temple and cleanse herself of that stubborn evil magic. He reaches out his hand to comfort her. "You have had to endure so much pain so far, but now you can rest peacefully," he says quietly. A rare touching moment. Mashers finally lets his tears flow. The sage smiled and joked that in his life, he had to deal with much more difficult students. Everything was settled, and Nagi returns to his base at the lake. After a long journey through the clouds, finally he reached the outskirts of the village. He is genuinely stunned. While he was away, the city has grown incredibly. Yona and Rudo immediately noticed him and ran to meet him to reunite. They greeted him with such welcomes that would melt any heart. It is obvious that the village has not stopped since he left one improvement after another. There are more of us now, but not only that, new races are joining our squad. A Nagi sees a huge scaly tail sliding through the grass. The group emerges from the Lamia tribe. They march forward, ready to offer their services to the Lord of the Lake. Like the Dark Elves, they were long oppressed. They are a persecuted race, now seeking protection. Nagi, undoubtedly the coolest, welcomes them with open arms. The leader of the Lamia clearly sighed with relief, finally found a place where they won't be hunted. Nagi just wants everyone to finally live happily after all the trash they had to go through. But that's not all. A group of burly dwarves also moved to the town. They officially asked to become residents of the growing community. As a gesture of goodwill, they hand Nagi a gift wrapped in cloth. It's a masterpiece, a sword forged with insane precision and care. Rudo's eyes literally sparkle as he looks at the blade. Nagi lets the child hold it, then decides to simply give it to him to encourage and motivate. He will keep it with him firmly and carefully until Rudo really learns to swing the sword. The city has grown so much that Nagi realizes he needs to expand the barrier magic. He orders the guys to quickly gather Philly and the rest of the main team. We meet at his estate. As soon as everyone gathered in his huge living room, Nagi unleashes a heavy request on them. I want you to meet with the Elf King as my representatives, he tells them. They need the cooperation of the elves to deal with the demons' intrigues regarding the spirits. Philly and the team are ready to give everything they have. But Fail looks strangely serious and decides to act a little on his own. Nagi feels that something is wrong, but still trusts his comrade. The next day, when the group was already about to set off, Nagi stopped them. He pulls out a huge spirit stone, pulsing and shining with pure energy. He explains that they need such a high-level item for the Elf King to truly take them seriously as envoys of the spirits. The mission began, and Nagi stood watching them go, knowing that the stakes had never been higher. Philly and his squad finally returned after a 2-month journey to the Elven Kingdom. They did not return alone. They brought along a 2-official retinue, which slightly unnerves everyone. Head marches Wilrian Lanuja Finrelt, the true heir to the kingdom's throne. Neji is drenched in cold sweat because he only wanted Philly to be a messenger, not to bring back the heir with her. He realizes a bit late that Lunisha literally means heir to the throne in Elvish, and Neji tries to understand how everything got so quickly out of control. Philly says that as soon as they arrived, the royal guards almost led them straight to the palace. Through their spirit stones, they felt Neji's huge presence. Having spent so much time next to the majestic spirit, the group got so used to it that they no longer noticed how truly cool our guy is. Neji admits that it slipped his mind, and now he understands he needs to be more cautious because he has already attracted the hostility of great world powers. The prince kneels on one knee and hands over a letter from King Lucian himself. Although it is formal, Neji still feels the king's sincere desire to build harmonious relations. He sighed with relief. Finally, they will be able to establish a close connection between the two territories. The prince lives and breathes cooperation without delays and wants to hear what Neji will say. Neji does not hold his tongue. He tells everything about the kingdom of Ludginus and the dark dragon Diazotis. He even exposes the truth about demons secretly pulling strings behind the scenes. When the prince hears about demons and disappearing spirit mages, he seems immediately burdened with heavy debuffs. It is clear how hard it is for him. Nagi wants the elves to become a bridge for communication with other great spirits, to always stay one step ahead. In return, the prince asks for a huge favor to help with the illness of the former king. Nagi just smiles slyly and hands over some special water, explaining that it is the very one that lifted the curse from the true dark dragon. The prince froze in shock. He realized this is the cure for the legendary forbidden curse itself. As soon as the elves clear the foyer, a new group of visitors will arrive at the entrance. This time they are beastmen. They unhesitatingly call Nagi the great spirit of water. Fail also returned, bringing with him several huge guards like Sharo. They came from the Beastmen Federation to discuss the pact and strengthen ties between us. Nagi has not yet recovered from the sudden influx of guests when one of the creatures suddenly begins to transform. The cloud of smoke disperses and we see the truth. It turned out that this guy is Prince Farian, the third prince of Judars, who ran away from home and now wanders with the group. They move the conversation inside the mansion. It is time to get down to business. Varian explains that he has already told his father about Naga's power. Because of that crazy barrier protecting the lake, his servant was also completely convinced of Naga's divinity. Nagi is simply happy that they are on the same wavelength. They immediately dive into a mountain of papers to finally seal the alliance. Everything is clear. Nagi is considered a separate combat unit, and no reinforcements will be required from him. Nagi definitely adds a condition. He will not help if Judars becomes the aggressor in the war. They gave their word to protect each other's citizens and keep trade honest and moderate. This is a strong agreement without any loopholes. Both sides cannot wait to start working together. They shake hands. The agreement is sealed, and this cements a major shift in the balance of power in the region. Nagi is already preparing his next move to the village of Drakonkan, but the team is worried. They think he is taking too much risk. He is going to propose an alliance against the demons and establish their trade. The children give their word to guard the lake until Nagi returns. Nagi stubbornly wants to leave. He needs to meet someone in person. He meets again with the Dragon King's group, among whom are Yona and Almana. As soon as the introductions ended, it turned out that Yona is Naga's contractor. Next, they plan to set out for the forbidden sanctuary of eternal darkness. But before they leave, Nagi calls Formus for a private conversation. Formus looks as if he has seen a ghost and tells Nagi to stay alert. He drops a bombshell. You have used your power too often. Nagi has just come into the world. His existence is unstable, and if things continue like this, he might literally disappear. Nagi is sweating. He fears that if he falls asleep, he won't be able to handle the demons. Formus explains that his soul is tied to the one with whom he made a contract, and when the world truly needs it, they will wake him up. He tells Nagi that it is time to trust his guys and have a long, sweet sleep. Finally, Nagi understands. He cannot carry the entire server on his shoulders. He watched the children sleep and suddenly realized that he had been trying to do everything alone all along. He sinks into thoughts about his duty as a powerful being, but Yona finds him awake. Yona anxiously tells him to rest before he breaks down. When Nagi tries to say a word, his body begins to turn into water right before her eyes. His hands literally dissolve into liquid as his mana drops to zero. Yona sees that he is completely exhausted and begs him to go to sleep. Nagi is stubborn, says he must protect them, but Yona will not tolerate it. She tells him directly, by allowing them to help, you are actually making the city stronger. She reminds him of all the times he saved them and says that finally it is their turn to repay him. She squeezes his hands and pleads with him to stop cornering himself. She begs him, trust us more. Looking at her determined face, Nagi understands. She is right. Finally, he allows himself to rest a little. So Nagi returns to the lake earlier than everyone expected, leaving Almini to handle the trade affairs. Helio sobs aloud, but promises to become stronger to be helpful. Nagi tells Yona, protect everyone while I am gone. He promises that he will eventually return to them. Likewise, everyone gathers around, praying for his recovery as the Great Spirit begins to fade. Nagi casts one last glance at them before completely dissolving. The water sparkles as he flows back into the lake. Yona tries not to cry as the boss logs out of the system. Good night, Lord Nagi, until the day we meet again. And then a single drop fell on the surface, a sign that the long-awaited moment had finally come. Yona instantly felt a change in the air. His instincts howled something huge was about to happen. With a barely audible voice, he understands the truth. Lord Nige has awakened. He did not waste a second, rushing to the source of that stunning power. The water itself spins and boils, carrying with it the return of their leader in the form of a true tsunami of energy. Nagi emerges, looking as if he has not aged, and greets Yona with a calm smile. It is clear, our guy has finally returned to the game. Even the dragon Belgius cannot contain his excitement. He behaves like a real puppy as soon as Nagi extends his hand to him. 5 hard years have passed, and while Nagi sat in forced AFK, the world did not stop. The legendary Agatsuma arrived to tell what is happening in the land. Returning to the estate, Nad freezes in amazement. Skyscrapers pierce the clouds and look more like a modern city than a fairy tale village. It turned out that the dwarves took Naga's casually thrown joke about dense housing literally, and putting their skillful hands to work, grew real concrete jungles. The city turned into a lively trade hub with teleportation circles and underground passages, but as soon as demons are mentioned, Naga's attention instantly shifts. For the last 3 years, demons, like mad scientists, have been turning monsters into real nightmares to scare the entire continent. These are not just ordinary small enemies, they have practically wiped entire tribes of beastmen and dragonkin off the face of the world. Yoner explains that even this city was besieged, but he rose up and became a top DPS to protect their home. But he was not alone. The water spirit Suiko held an impenetrable barrier to protect the civilian. Nagi sincerely prides himself on how much they have grown, but Suiko says that after the last battle, something sinister remained behind. She extends a jagged gemstone, black as obsidian, obtained from one of the fallen monsters. Nagi takes the stone, and his face darkens. He feels a sinister corruption radiating from it. This is not just a random find, it has the same cursed aura as the forbidden child, Diazotis. When Nagi looked closer, the stone suddenly began to bleed a deep red. It turned out to be a distorted crystal of a fire spirit. The room grew cold as Suiko explains that these crystals are the hearts of spirits, meaning demons literally cut out spirits to fuel their war machine. It seems this was a less powerful fire spirit that never had a chance. Naga's hands tremble as he clenches the crystal, and his calm finally breaks, giving way to pure rage. They attacked my village, harmed the spirits, desecrated them. I will never forgive them for this, he says, and his eyes burn with cold fury. His murderous intent is so heavy that the children seem about to collapse under its pressure. Seeing the tension, Agatsuma clapped his hands, interrupted the spell, and suggested finishing for today so that Nagi could recover his mana. Nagi yields, but the fire in his eyes has not yet gone out. Later that night, Nagi thanks the old man for handling the situation before he himself lost control. Agatsuma did not sugarcoat it. He immediately asked Nagi to present the spirits at the next Union Council. This is a huge alliance. The most powerful fighters of the clans of humans, elves, dwarves, and dragons have come together here. Nagi hesitates. He feels that he is too detached from affairs to lead the other great spirits. But Agatsuma says that the spirits of darkness, lava, desert, and thunder have already given their blades to this cause. They made it clear they support this alliance only because Nagi is at the helm. When Nagi hears that the meeting is in 5 days, he almost goes mad from such last-minute news. Agatsuma insists there is no time for a training arc and Nagi must be here. We skip 5 days and a huge teleportation circle flares up and comes to life. They arrive in the very heart of the Anashia Empire, a country that looks like it has maxed out its branch of magical technologies. This is the most reliable stronghold, so the World Summit must take place here. They enter the council hall, where the air is so thick it could suffocate a dragon. Once again, all the leading world leaders are here, and everyone is sweating profusely. Nagi recognizes a familiar face, Hiram, the right hand of the Dragon King, who looks like he hasn't slept for a week. Hiramu admits that he is stuck in a continuous routine, constantly trying to prevent the vengeful dragons from getting out of control. Agatsuma takes the floor and reminds everyone that the demon threat is no longer a problem that can be postponed. He slammed the table and warned the kings, if you don't stop playing solo and start acting as a team, you are all doomed. The dwarf king Venava finally asked the question that troubled everyone. What does the real solution to this problem look like? Agatsuma clenches his fist and says that his predictions show, in 3 years a full-scale war will begin, and victory is their only way out. The entire hall is instantly gripped by a wave of pure horror. Everyone remembers the legends of ancient wars. Even when the gods were on their side, the Alliance could not see the matter through to the end. But that war left the world in ruins, and the demons never completely disappeared. Agatsuma asks not to fall into despair, but the historical trauma weighs heavily on everyone. Nagi listens quietly while they tell how the previous hero managed to overthrow the Demon King. The kings tried to cope, insisting that demons should not be made as strong as in the Golden Age. They look at Nagi and Hiramu, realizing that with dragons and great spirits on their side, they have a chance to fight. The mood instantly flips, and the room erupts in applause as they begin to believe they can truly win. But in the middle of the celebration, one man in the crowd smiles too suspiciously. Nagi instantly caught his vibe, and before anyone could blink, he locked that man in a water cage. The hall freezes as the man struggles against the overwhelming pressure of spirit magic. Other nobles think Nagi has lost his mind and demand to know why he is attacking a person. But Nagi did not flinch. He showed that he sensed such powerful malice that no human should ever have. As he speaks, the man's skin begins to melt like cheap plastic, revealing beneath a terrible, scarred face of a demon spy hiding among them. The interrogation begins with a cold demand to tell the truth. First, what is your name? This demon spy is all sweaty as the crystal blade barely touches his cheek. He pretends to be silent, but in this room all are pros, and they are not here to play games. The old man warns if you choose silence, and says this before activating a high-level torture spell. flash of lightning twisted the demon, and he let out a scream that would make even a crowd of minor enemies shudder. Nagi Arbi is forced to constantly use his healing magic so that the spy's health bar does not drop to zero, and his torment will last forever. "Yes, I will speak, just stop," shouted the spy, and it turned out he was Yunus, an agent of the demon army. He was sent to gather information about the Alliance meeting. In fact, his true mission is to investigate the great spirits and dragons. Nagi leans forward, a terrible aura thickens around him, and he asks, "What are you going to do with the kidnapped mage spirits?" He demands that the spy tell me everything you know. The truth is horrifying. They zombify mages and sacrifice spirits to fuel a dark ritual. To resurrect the Demon King, Junus howled, and his face twisted into a demonic nightmare. He explodes with a sinister laugh, his body inflates and bursts, and he mocks that they will all be slaughtered. Nagi has no delay, instantly deploys a barrier to contain the massive explosion. Turned out, the demon did not just commit suicide, another demon remotely detonated him to silence him. Secondary characters completely lose their composure, gripped by horror at the thought that they cannot defeat the legendary boss. The old man calmed the panic, noticing that the Demon King had not yet returned. They must gather their strength and diligently level up while the enemy is not yet ready. "We will choose a hero," the old man said, as if already ready to lead the world's first raid. The council decides to give the ritual to the Holy Church of Arnis, and the meeting finally concludes. Several weeks passed, and the whole world was tensely preparing for the approaching storm. A messenger named Donan arrives at the estate, bearing news that will turn life upside down. He explains that the divine oracle has chosen 5 heroes. A child wielding the spirit sword. He looks directly at our boy's companion and says, "That child is none other than Lord Yona." It seems the oracle is unwavering, and these chosen heroes are given a sacred blessing and a sign from the gods. Yona unbuttons his shirt, and a divine sign of water lights up on his chest. The church wants to snatch Yona and send him to the great cathedral to seriously enhance his power. Nagi understands what this means. His contract partner is being taken away, and he falls silent. Although Nagi is not thrilled about all this, determination burns in Yona's eyes. "I will become a hero of water," he shouted, because he wants to protect everyone dear to him. After 3 days, it was time to depart, and Yona said goodbye with sadness. The townspeople have mixed feelings. They knew the church was involved, which was troubling, but still they are happy for Yona. The little girl hugged him and cried, saying what an incredible older brother she has. Everyone cheers him on, shouting, "Do everything you can." However, Helio stands behind, looking completely broken. Yona notices his friend, but the words get stuck in his throat. Now there is a huge chasm between the chosen hero and everyone else. Nagi watches the drama, feeling the tension hanging in the air. When the sun sets, Nagi admits to himself that he will be lonely without his friend. He notices Yona sneaking out of the house in the middle of the night. Our guide decides to follow him in the form of a spirito, find out what is going on. Yona meets Helio in the depths of the forest. Helio behaves coldly and asks, "What business does the hero of the Holy Church have with me?" He is clearly in pain, and he tells Yona that he does not want to hear any excuses. Helio admits is happy that Yona has worked hard for 8 years. And then he explodes, shouting, "Why did you have to side with the Holy Church?" Nagi feels that Helio was not mistaken. There is too dark a past here. Dark elves were originally ordinary elves. Demons kidnapped them, and in vile experiments transformed them into a completely new race. Instead of helping them, the church declared them heretics and began merciless, cruel persecution. Helio remembers how they were persecuted and driven out of every settlement until they found Lake Nagi. Helio cannot believe it. Yona is joining the very people who brought so much suffering to his race. But Yona is not simply selling out. He went under their wing for a reason. "I have another goal," he says to his friend, and he looks Helio straight in the eyes and reveals his plan to get the Pope to revoke the declaration that dark elves were declared heretics. He knows a hero's request will truly be heard, but a half-elf's request will not. From the very beginning, this was his plan. But Yona wants to change reality itself for the sake of the dark elves he loves so much. He wants to be like Lord Nagi and save those who are unjustly wronged. Helio cried, apologizing for being so cold to his friend. He promised that while Yona was absent, he would protect the city and Nagi with everything he had. "I will become stronger," he swears through tears. He tells Yona that it is better for him to return whole and unharmed. They seal the promise with a friendly fist bump. Nagi watches from the shadows and is proud. His guys are driving doubts out of their hall. Finally, the day comes when Yona leaves Lake Town and sets off on his next adventure. His family truly feels the weight of this moment. They remind him that he always has a home to return to. But Yona does not go alone. Suiko joins to back him up, and he swears to return a true hero. As it turned out, Suiko is not the only one who stands guard. A new spirit named Suiko was born in the town to watch over him. Before the squad sets off, Nagi hands Yona a mysterious gift. It is a completely new spirit sword made specifically to grow together with Yona, because his old gear has already started to look like beginner-level weapons. Nagi wants him to hold these cool things one in each hand to get the most out of his training. So that they do not lose connection across the entire map, Nagi reminds him that the contract seal allows Yona to call for backup as soon as something starts to go wrong. This is a huge reinforcement because, as Nagi says, my strength is also Yona's strength. Donan takes the lead and takes on the protection of Yona while they prepare to set off. Outside, suddenly Helio runs inside, all sweaty, because he was praying for their safety. Seeing Yona set off to save the world, Helio and Rudo are filled with determination. As they wave goodbye, Helio suddenly realizes he is tired of being a secondary character. He tells Nagi directly, I want to become stronger. He strives to protect the squad just like Yona. Helio immediately throws himself into his training arc, pouring every drop of sweat to master his spear. He works every day, destroying targets one by one to increase his DPS. Rudo is not lagging behind either. He dives into the depths of spirit magic, so they can both push each other to the limit. They are aiming for the prize, and Rudo even says that one day he will beat his older brother. This does not last long. Agatsuma appears completely broken and begs Nagi for help. He dropped a bombshell. An ancient monster that was once sealed has broken free. The demons have officially resurrected Cerberus, the legendary three-headed dog from hell. The children lose their composure. They thought this creature was just a myth. This is not some minor mob. It is a world boss-level threat that raged during the Great War of Gods and Demons. Agatsuma admits that they cannot kill it, so their only chance is to seal this monster again. Nagi unhesitatingly lures the enemies onto himself, leaving Suiki to watch the base, and goes to deal with the threat. They instantly teleport away, leaving the others behind. They land deep in the mountains, in such a remote wilderness that no one would notice the demons summoning a nightmare. If they do not stop Cerberus here, the beast will head straight to the nearest villages and wipe out the entire lobby. Hiramu and Yuki are already on site. They barely scratched the monster. Nagi is introduced to the real heavy artillery Menephi, Rodo, Trix, and Vicolt, who make up the 5 sages. These guys are the top mages of this world, from alchemists to binding masters. Even despite all this fiery power, Cerberus exudes pure malice. One of the sages initially jokes that he will make it a pet, but quickly realizes that this monster is on a completely different level. Finally, Nagi utters a word. Begin preparation for sealing. This is not just a spell, it is a huge, large-scale ritual, so its activation will take a lot of time. Cerberus notices them and lunges into attack, forcing the group to act immediately before he reaches the residential areas. Nagi shouted for everyone to hold on. He is preparing to release a huge wave. He releases a stream of water that cuts through the air like a blade. The water instantly crystallizes into icy, sharp projectiles and rains down on the beast. The attack looks like a direct hit from afar. The projectile hit the monster's 3 heads, momentarily stunning it. Hiram tries to take advantage of the opening, but Cerberus had a trick up his sleeve. In the blink of an eye, the beast suddenly disappeared completely from the battlefield. The pro gamer makes a move, teleports right behind the hero to set up a surprise flank. The beast lunged and bit deeply into Hiramu's hand before he could react in any way. Hiramu lies there, losing blood, and wonders what kind of broken mechanism he has to deal with. Nagi realizes the situation is critical because the beast is surrounded by a poisonous cloud. And it also teleports through space, so catching it is almost impossible. The sages sweat, pushing the seal to the limit, begging for just a few more seconds of cover. Nagi and Hiramu exchanged a glance. They knew it was time to stop holding back and unleash the final duet of dragon and water into battle. Cerberus is a real trouble. It teleports and constantly emits miasma everywhere. But Nagi is completely different. Her body is healing water, so she can touch those trash monsters without getting infected. She is convinced if she survived the basilisk's petrification, then the dog's breath is nothing to her. Suddenly, a dark portal opened, and the beast was already preparing to strike. Nagi does not hesitate and rushes straight into the danger zone. Cerberus jumps out of the shadow portal, but our girl is ready to take the aggro on herself. She creates a giant water vortex to catch the beast. Then Hiramu loudly cheers her on while she binds the monster. It turns out her healing water form mercilessly neutralizes the miasma. Cerberus realizes it is losing and resorts to a sneaky trick, trying to drag Nagi into another dimension. Hiramu throws himself inside to stop the teleportation, shouting at the top of his lungs, "I will allow this to happen." Two dragons fiercely fight the three-headed nightmare, pinning it down, and water splashes around. The sage stands aside, looking worried and asks, "Are you two okay? Because the power of this battle is about to break all limits." Nagi knows they have little time and shouts back, "Don't talk nonsense, if I let go it will escape." She instantly comes up with a desperate move, to transform into a water sphere and trap the beast. Hiramu is horrified for her, but she calmly says, "It's okay, I am water." She is literally going to use the shockwave of her breath attack to disperse her own body, just to break free from the seal. The countdown has begun, and the tension is off the charts. On the 1-2, Nagi has already completely enveloped the monster with her water prison. The sage shouted right now, as the last signal sounded. A colossal beam of energy pierced the water sphere and instantly struck Cerberus to the ground. When the smoke cleared, only a small black sphere remained in place of the monster. Nagi restructures her body and sighs with relief they did not fall under the eternal ban of that seal. Nagi is simply happy that everyone is safe. A smile flashed on her face, saying, "The fight is finally won." She says to the group, "Thanks to you, we hit Cerberus directly and proved that they are an invincible duo." Nagi is truly impressed with the success of the plan, especially the moment when the monster was crushed under the pressure of the sea depths water. When the threat was eliminated, the group decided it was time to gather with the rest of the squad. All the sages wait, bowing their heads. They know that our guys have just saved their lives. Hiramu asks with trembling whether the monster has disappeared forever, and the sage quietly confirms, it is locked in an isolated space. They hide the orb in a chest of the highest level and firmly seal it with ancient runes. The ladies are still in shock, saying the shockwaves of the battle reached them for miles. One of the younger sages sincerely admits what a terrible monster it was. This leads to a quick lore dump. The sages are essentially the elite of this world, players of the highest level who have mastered magic for centuries. As the meeting was coming to an end, Agatsuma said anxiously that he is worried about what the demon race is planning. One by one, the sages begin to log out of the game, thanking Nagi and Hiramu for carrying them through. Everyone says goodbye and returns to their zones. Even the refined lady sage is already ready to head home after this exhausting raid. Before the old wise woman leaves, she extends a special gift to Nagi. It is a bottle of Evola, a divine elixir that she herself mixed. This thing is like a cheat code, also called the medicine of wishes, because it gives everything that the user truly desires. She warns them, as long as they do not wish to destroy the world, everything will work. But there is a catch: this item can be used only once. She admits that she has already used her wish, so the potion is now useless for her. Now she gives it to Nagi because she trusts him and knows that he will use this gacha reward correctly. Hiramu asks if he has any wish, and Nagi is suddenly seized by a moment of deep reflection. For a moment he thought, why not use this to return to his native world? He remembers how he felt when he first arrived. He just wanted to relax and return home as soon as possible. But when he looks back at all the friends he has made, his view of the world has completely changed. He realizes that he is not going to return at all, because he has already fallen in love with this world and the people in it. Hiramu admits that he also had no thoughts while they walked towards the sunset. Nagi, before they leave, asks the chief sage for one more thing. He is looking for a spear of the highest quality, not for himself, but to give it to someone special. Let's fast forward on that night under the full moon. We see little Helio. He puts all his strength into training and is still trying to master his basic equipment. Neji drives up and unexpectedly catches the boy, happily greeting him at home. Helio is simply happy to see that his mentor is alive and unharmed. Neji tells him that he brought a souvenir from the Cerberus raid. He extends the legendary spear, and the boy can hardly believe his eyes. But as soon as the second Helio touched it, the weapon instantly turned into rusty junk. The poor boy thinks he broke it, but Neji explains the legend of the Theo-Oxus spear. This is the weapon of a legendary hero. Its true power awakens only when it recognizes the one who holds it. He tells Helio that if he continues to train hard and work, the spear will eventually acknowledge him and shine again. Helio now burns with determination and promises to give everything he has. Neji gently tells the boy to rest. A little recovery is also part of the journey. When the day fades, several fluffy paws appear before the eyes, softly kneading the ground. And we end the day with a warm, touching shot. A white tiger and winged kittens peacefully sleep and quietly purr after a long day. Calm is a luxury we cannot afford when looking at the quiet outskirts of the city. Our guy Nagi and the team are just relaxing when a letter from Yona finally arrives. Nagi immediately dived into the update to see how his former comrade is doing in the big league. Turns out this kid works here around the clock under the watchful eye of Lady Anya, the chief holy knight. He is not alone either. He is in a powerful team with 4 other heroes, blessed by the gods themselves. We see a full lineup of top-level talents. Here is Marshall. He has a cheat code that controls the weather, Kinia, a master of alchemy, and Meneles, who can literally grow an entire forest with her plant magic. And there is also the true invincible strength of the group, Ranil, the hero of fire, whom Yona looks up to as an ideal. Yona has firmly decided to reach the top and writes that he will definitely become a great hero. At home, the rest of the squad feels the pressure. Everyone has to hurry, not to fall behind such rapid growth. Nagi is simply delighted to see that the boy is making good acquaintances and has not yet broken down from the tough training. The warm moment is interrupted by Philly, who approaches with a serious expression. Kreswav Academy, obsessed with points, character first Iron Gate Reform School. She dropped a real bombshell. Her team found a dungeon hidden deep in the forest. In this world, dungeons are like lottery machines that dispense rare resources, but at the same time, they are a political nightmare that can provoke aggression from all neighboring countries. Philly acted wisely. She did not let the news leak and swore the entire scout team to absolute secrecy. She did not even dare to look inside first. She decided to return to Nagi and report to find out what to do. Nagi begins to rummage through his memory wiki, recalling that dungeons come in 2 different types, natural and artificial. Natural ones are essentially mana oversaturation zones that, under environmental influence, form themselves into fields or mountains. But artificial ones are much more insidious. They are created by dungeon lords, constructing multi-level towers or underground labyrinths. Natural places are great for gathering raw materials, but it is in artificial locations that legendary trophies are hidden. They are full of deadly traps. Nagi understands, if it is a natural dungeon, nations will rush to fight over the harvest, but if it is artificial, it could very well be a trap set by demons. They decide to patrol the perimeter the very next day to understand what they are dealing with. When the group makes their way through dense thickets, the atmosphere around begins to change. Now they have officially reached the very heart of the natural dungeon. The landscape is simply incredible. The flowers are so bright and huge that it seems just a glance is enough to catch the effect of poisoning. All this is due to the crazy density of magical energy that has thoroughly soaked the soil. Suddenly Nagi notices something huge, a tree with a worn ancient face carved into its bark. Philly is on alert, but Nagi immediately recognizes this creature. It is a trant, a legendary plant monster, usually calm unless provoked. These plants are actually endangered. People constantly cut them down and pick them for magical wands and fruits that enhance power. Realizing they have stumbled upon a true goldmine of rare materials, Nagi decides they must return and make a plan before others find out about this place. Under the thin crescent moon, the city's elder council gathers to discuss the discovery. The leaders are stunned that such a huge manual existed right next to home. A heated debate breaks out among them, whether it is worth trying to cleanse this zone at all. Some already see a pile of money that can be earned from these rare flowers and materials. Everyone is unanimous, this must be cleared out without fail. But Etna is drenched in cold sweat. She is terribly afraid that this news will leak out. She knows that human greed is no joke and fears that other countries, upon hearing about the loot, will immediately try to seize their territory. There is a split in the room. They cannot simply exchange these resources because the outside world will immediately notice. The Lamia representative quietly suggests trading only with their current allies so that everything remains unnoticed. Nagi notices that Etna behaves especially cautiously. She is still wary of how people use power. The gnome in the room simply tells everyone to calm down. No one would be foolish enough to provoke the great spirit Nagi. After a sleepless night, they decided to report the find only to the kingdoms of Dragonkin, Finrelth, and Judel. They know perfectly well, as soon as the highest level items enter circulation, the secrets will soon be revealed. Instead of hiding everything and destroying trust, they will play a diplomatic game with allies, and Nagi will become the last argument against any countries trying to interfere. The next morning, an official raid team of experienced fighters was sent out. The younger children simply go crazy because they are not allowed to join the party. Nagi must explain that in the depths, higher-level monsters are probably lurking, which can kill them with a single blow. As a concession, he agrees to take them to the outskirts to hunt some monsters and help protect the city. They even took Balagius with them to add some firepower. The children make a real adventure out of it. While they are all excited and ready to start training, some nasty minor enemies are already lurking in the darkness. Something big is definitely waiting for them in the tall grass, and it seems it is already ready to hunt. The team rushed into the forest for much-needed training, while Rudo and Helio honed their interaction. Suddenly, Rudo's spider sense tingled. He caught a suspicious rustle in the bushes. Even before the threat could appear, Naji shouted for everyone to duck. Meanwhile, he was preparing a counterattack. Rudo does not hesitate with a sharp cry. He unleashes a powerful stream of high-pressure water magic. He is completely focused, putting every drop of his mana into this first move. A couple of nasty goblins were suddenly knocked off their feet by a sudden water squall. Helio immediately checks if Lord Nagi is okay, but our guy is calm as always. He is actually quietly impressed by how much the kids have leveled up their combat skills. Nagi decides it's better to stay aside so the guys can gain all the XP, but Balagius suddenly notices another presence sneaking nearby. Even more small enemies are approaching along the tray line, and they look anything but friendly. Nagi warns the group, being surrounded is a one-way ticket to a game over, so stay away. But Rudo notices, besides the goblins caught in crossfire, there is something else there. A pack of goblins has driven a helpless victim deeper into the thicket. It turns out to be a tiny winged creature, resembling a kitten, clearly suffering from serious debuffs. Rudo is ready to draw all the enemy's attention to himself to save it, even though Helio warns him about the tactical risk of jumping into an ambush. Rudo can't just stand aside and shout that if we don't hurry, this child will die. Seeing the determination of his friends, Helio decides to join the fight to clear the hall together. Nagi gives them the green light and promises to spring into action if the situation becomes suspicious. Two burst in without any delay. Rudo shoots a powerful stream of water at the disgusting goblin's snout, while Helio maneuvers, preparing to finish it off with a spear. Helio spares no effort, delivers a powerful blow that catches the monster by surprise. The goblins screamed as their health bars dropped to 0. The last wave of magic runs through the clearing as the children give everything they have. Rudo finishes off the last straggler with a timely burst of elemental power. When the place was cleared, the boys finally sighed and surveyed the battlefield. They rushed to the unconscious creature, and Rudo practically begs it to hold on. Nagi intervenes with powerful top-level healing, instantly healing the child's wounds. Even when the physical injuries disappeared, the creature still looks completely exhausted and without any energy. Rudo thinks it is just hungry and offers his lunch to help it recover. A small fluff ball cautiously sniffs the bread. Suddenly, it grabs the food and rushes to the entrance of the nearest cave. The crew decides to follow to find out what is really happening in the darkness. They step into the cave and hear the echo of creatures bouncing off the damp walls. Deep inside, the baby gently places the bread in front of a much larger figure. It tries to push the food toward its father mother, hoping to eat together. It repeatedly touches the adult with its paw, desperately seeking any reaction. But the truth is harsh. The father is just a cold, rotten skeleton. The realization hit the group like a truck as they watched the baby mourn its lost relatives. Finally, the poor thing collapses from exhaustion and grief. Rudo completely loses composure, staring in shock at the tragic scene. Nagi bitterly reminds of the cruel truth of this world. This child will not survive on its own. Helio is worried bringing a wild animal into the city could turn out to be dangerous, but Rudo does not back down. He looked at the orphan and whispered, "This child, she is just like me." He remembers if Nagi had not intervened and saved him, he would no longer be here. Rudo begs Nagi to allow him to take full responsibility for the life of this little one. Seeing Rudo's unwavering determination, Nagi blesses him and sincerely trusts the boy's heart. They find time to erect a worthy memorial for the deceased father or mother, and even make a small drawing on the stone. Rudo beamed with pride and exclaimed that from now on he is the older brother of this little creature. Suddenly we find ourselves at another training ground, where a powerful strike simply shatters a heavy glove. The instructor, Mrs. Ania, announced that the session for Yona and Renal is over. Both boys are completely exhausted from the tough training regime and sit down to catch their breath. Yona is disappointed with his game. Today he managed to take only 1 point from Ranial. He is sincerely impressed by how incredible Renial becomes during their sparring sessions. Renio responds with a compliment, acknowledging that Yona is already becoming a real beast. He notes that Yona has a rare talent both in spirit magic and in swordsmanship. Yona is delighted that his hard work is bearing fruit. While Yona vows to shorten the distance between them, a deep melancholy lies on Renial's face, hinting that much more is hidden beneath the surface. The silence of the estate was shattered by a sudden, fierce rumble that echoed loudly through the corridors. Rudo and our guy rushed to the source of the noisy sea chaos, debris flying everywhere. In the shadow of the furniture hides a small tiger cub, growling fiercely and seemingly ready to bite off a piece of anyone who comes too close. But this is not just a stray Catenthes, is a Eukaryon, a legendary creature with white furred wings and a magical eye on its forehead, which grants unique and unpredictable abilities. Naj tries to pretend to be calm, reaching out a hand to gently lure the little beast out of hiding. But this cub is not calm at all. It instantly attacks and bites Naji's hand, while Rudo watches in complete panic. Finally, Rudo picks up that burning ball of fluff, but he clearly takes damage as the cub keeps biting him constantly. "Oh, don't bite me," he pleads, although the cub is clearly just confused by the new place. Since there is no manual on how to raise a legendary beast, the group simply improvises. Rudo finally realizes that expert help is needed and suggests heading to the city to consult with the strongest students of Agatsumi. They track down Neo and Luo, two researchers who looked like they had spent more time with books than under the sun. Light, as soon as they hear the words Yukari on the cube, their eyes light up as if they just pulled a triple SSR in one 10-pull. They say Eukaryons are so rare that they are seen only in legends, let alone finding a baby. Nagi must set boundaries and explain that the baby is still too wary for full scientific observation. The students are upset but agree to wait and share the knowledge they have read in ancient writings. They say these creatures are apex predators who almost never leave their territory. Their magical eye is no joke. It really imposes negative effects, causing petrification, generating illusions, or even making one completely invisible. To help cubs settle in, the students say they might need one thing that overcomes the language barrier. They eagerly awaited the dungeon research team's return with rare materials to finally advance their medical studies. Rudo desperately searches for a way to truly understand what this baby feels. Level mentions a potion for animal consciousness. It works as a universal translator for animals. There is only one catch: these materials are incredibly hard to find, although they may be hidden deep in the dungeon. Meggy decides that as soon as they return, they will immediately check the expedition team's loot. For now, they return to check on the cub, which is still hiding under the furniture, a true recluse. The food and milk were untouched, and the cub looks as if it is struggling with a serious mood decline. Nagi asks Rudo to give it some space. She knows well, such a bond cannot be rushed. Rudo does not lower her head, promising to wait until the little tiger finally opens its heart. The next day, Philly and the expedition team finally return to the city after a successful journey. She greets Nagi with a huge smile, displaying a harvest that any farmer would envy. They obtained Oron nectar, a precious ingredient for evolution elixirs. Nagi examines a sapphire leaf, a top-grade material that can destroy even the most vile curses. Philly begins to analyze the dungeon strategy, explaining enthusiastically how they set up the base to start grinding. At the lower levels swarmed insect-like small enemies, giant ants and mantises. Naji is surprised that he hasn't encountered them yet, but Philly explains that the aura of the great spirits probably made them hide. The team managed to collect a ton of poison and shells from those beetles. They also came across plant monsters, dryads and Orinus, quickly knocking them down to grab more loot. These materials are incredibly rare on the market, so the team is basically sitting on a gold mine. Neon, Neo, and Luol are at the top because this allows them to skillfully create various high-level medicines. Philly says there are about 100 monsters in the dungeon, and they will all respawn sooner or later, so the supply of materials will be stable. Between the trance and the scent of herbs, she calls the dungeon high quality. Naji repeats the rank and suddenly realizes what huge value they have stumbled upon. He remembered, in the guild, dungeons are divided by 2 criteria: difficulty and loot quality. Difficulty is divided into 5 levels from the easiest to the hardest. Meanwhile, loot is ranked by quality from poor to the best. Since they are sitting on a very rich gold deposit, Nagi decides that it's time to give this place a real name, rather than just calling it that dungeon. The students unanimously agree. They ask their master to give it a name that suits its character. Nagi freezes for a moment and imagines this place. He thinks about bright flowers and that only the chosen can reach there. He remembers those towering plant monsters that guarded the groves. How about the secret kingdom of plant beasts, he suggests, and the team simply loves this atmosphere. As soon as they begin planning the next expedition, Naga's gamer senses sharpen. He suddenly feels a sharp, piercing wave in the air. A surge of spiritual energy instantly hits him, and his eyes open wide. He realizes something is very wrong. He senses one of the spirits with whom he made a pact is in mortal danger. These are not the formidable heavyweights like Suiko or Yona. This is someone much more vulnerable. It's Ryu, the very first familiar he sent many years ago to help a boy named Lumina. We see a glimpse of Lumina, now older, desperately calling upon the magic of water to protect himself. Monsters are literally tearing the village to pieces, and the cries of the people fill the air. Lumina is covered in cold sweat. A terrifying monster, resembling a squid, looms over him. The monster's aura is a complete nightmare, and the boy is paralyzed with fear as the monster prepares to strike. He tries to block the blow, but the monster's strength is unstoppable, and he is thrown back. Just as the monster is about to finish him off, Naga's presence breaks through as if a god himself descended onto the battlefield. He summons a huge sphere of water, traps the monster inside it, and with one smooth motion shields Lumina. With a single wrist movement, the water pressure crushes the monster, sending it back to the respawn screen in a bloody explosion. Nagi lands softly, picking up a glowing shard left by the monster, a small water spirit that was corrupted. Lumina raises his gaze, tears stream down his cheeks, and he recognizes his savior. Nagi turned his attention to Rue after so many wounds. The appearance was terrible. The situation is dreadful. Injured villagers lie all over the village, but Nagi releases a burst of healing light that instantly heals their wounds. People call it a miracle, but Nagi quietly signals Lumina, "Keep my true self to yourself." Although they saved the people, the village is in terrible condition. Houses are leveled to the ground, and the surrounding land is covered with scars. Nagi surveys the ruins, his face hardening. He understands that they cannot just leave it like this. Narsha and Lumina's mother ran outside, sighing with relief. Their boy ended up among the corpses after that monster attack. Narsha does not understand at all who the man in the hood standing there is, and asks, "Brother, who is this?" Lumina is overwhelmed by a wave of nostalgia when he realizes that his little sister was so tiny when Nagi first saved them that she doesn't even remember his face. Lumina is restrained and professional, clearly introducing him as Lord Nagi, the one who saved his life years ago. Things become much more serious when the village elders call a meeting to decide what to do next. Harsh awakening for our guy. He watched the bodies being carried out and realized that many did not have plot armor to survive until his arrival. Nagi just collapsed on a crate, and Lu hung nearby, calmly waiting while Lumina dealt with the survivors. Finally, Lumina catches up to him, apologizing for making him wait. Nagi watches with interest the growth spurt and his shining powers, noticing how the bond between him and the little water spirit strengthens. He is thrilled that Lumina really used spirit magic in that last battle. Lumina dives into memories. Since he met Nagi, Lu was like a guardian angel to him. Even when his mother only slightly cut her finger with scissors, Lu was already lurking in the shadows and quietly getting to work. His mother always thought it was just some random gift from a spirit, not suspecting that the real hero was standing right next to her. Lumina dreamed for years to see with his own eyes and thanked the spirit that protected his family's health. On his 7th birthday, he finally got lucky. He drew the legendary prize, a mysterious mark appeared on his hand, and he finally saw Lu's kind face. That's when the merchant Philly arrived, and everything became much more interesting. Philly, as an elf, immediately sensed the spirit and noticed the contract seal on Lumina's right hand. She was truly delighted, saying, "Maybe your feelings and love have united," and it happened by itself. Philly is not just a random NPC, she is an elf, so she can create spirit magic without any contract. She offers to teach Lumin other tricks, so he can become a top-level mage like Nagi. Returning to reality, Lumina clenches his hands and still feels like a low-level player, a weakling, because he couldn't defeat that last boss on his own. He says that this monster is a completely different level. He has never seen anything like it. Nagi reveals a terrifying secret. That thing is a water spirit crystal, altered by demons and turned into a killing machine. Demons threaten the whole world, and even such remote villages as this one are now in their sights. Naju looks Lumina straight in the eyes and firmly tells him that since Lu is like a native child to him, Lumina is no less important. He says to the child, "If you ever get into trouble, I want you to rely on me." Lumina does not hesitate, bows his head and pleads, "Lord Nagi, please save this village." It breaks the heart to see him break down, telling that they have lost so many people and their food supplies are completely destroyed. He is sweating in drops, thinking that his people will starve if another wave of monsters begins. The situation is terrible. Only about 20 men remain alive to protect a bunch of injured women and children. Nagi knows he cannot just relocate them to his lake, because the dark elves there will lose their peace upon seeing humans settle. He gives a sign to step forward and places his hand on the head of the crying boy. He promises to support them so they can rebuild their home from scratch. Naji understands that if some stranger suddenly starts giving things away for free, the villagers might become wary. He decides to show his true form, the Great Spirit, to ease the transition. The next day, Lumina brings him to the village elder, and Nagi makes a shocking confession. I am Nagi, the Great Spirit of Water. To prove his words, Lumina tells how a few years ago Neji healed her mother from an incurable disease. The crowd froze, stunned. Why would the god himself go to such trouble for them? Neji modestly says that he is simply responding to a contract that Lumina made with her familiar. As if on command, reinforcements arrive with wagons loaded with loot. Philly and a burly dwarf named Garu jump out, ready to handle everything from provisions to building repairs. When they saw the cavalry arrive, the whole village suddenly fell prostrate in full kowtow to show their respect. Nagi tells them to calm down and raise their heads. Food is much more important than his ego. He entrusts the village head with distribution because he himself does not know where what is here. And when the villagers begin to receive food, the mood instantly changes from despair to hope. Lumina approaches Nagi, a little guilty for revealing his secret identity to everyone. But Nagi doesn't care. He is simply happy to see that Lumina's family is healthy and grateful. Even the younger sister Nasha finally remembers the spirit who saved her when she was a baby. Natty gives her sincere advice: continue to support each other as a family, to which she responds with a smile reaching her ears. Suddenly, a loud rumble breaks the moment. Garrod begins to smash the house. Nagi says, "Yo, what are you doing? The house is still livable." But the gnome has a bigger dream. He boasts about the blueprint for a grand reconstruction of the entire village. Now all you can do is sweat from the gnome's enthusiasm about his desire to completely rebuild everything. As the sun sets over the ruins, restoration rages on, and hope finally begins to sprout in the village.